Hello and welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Explore our playlist for more captivating novels, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new audiobook. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1: The Eagle of Dressrosa Castle. The morning sun shines. On the training ground, young men wearing knight armor and bucket helmets are shouting. Everyone's face is extremely resolute, and sweat is constantly flowing, but no one relaxes. As the young eagles of the Count of Dressrosa, they must show their own capital before they reach adulthood. Otherwise, they may not be able to obtain even the lowest level of knight status. Once they lose the qualification of knight, their status will be the same as those of free people, no longer protected and loved by the laws of the kingdom, and the glory of the goddess of life will not be shed on them. This is intolerable to everyone. However, it is obvious that even if it is intolerable, some people will not be able to become knights. After all, it is no less difficult to condense the seed of life before the age of 18 and become a qualified apprentice knight than to pass the college entrance examination in the previous life and directly enter Tsinghua and Peking University. At least Zhang Chen, no, it should be said that Thor Dressrosa felt that he had no hope at this moment. As a time traveler, Thor never thought that he would wake up and travel to such a Western fantasy world and become the son of the Count of Dressrosa Castle. Of course, at first, he was undoubtedly surprised. Although it was not the gentle maid who woke him up, but the male servant who gave him goosebumps. But looking at his big bed that was 3 meters wide, and the exquisite food and clothes that made him gasp, it was enough to make him feel that his time travel was worthwhile. This shameful feudal life was too wonderful. However, the excitement did not last too long. Thor soon found that his good days might not last long. Because in the Dressrosa family, there has been a rule for hundreds of years. That is, if the offspring cannot condense the seed of life and become an apprentice knight before the age of 18, then they will lose the protection of the family, lose the qualification of knight, and be kicked out of the family. Only by becoming an apprentice knight can they still enjoy the glory of the family. Knight. It is the extraordinary power of this world. The descendants of the nobles can condense their own seeds of life by taking life potions and supplementing them with a lot of exercise, so as to have the power to transcend the mortal world. Stop. Rest. Thoughts flowed, and while Thor's thoughts were intertwined, Knight Commander Michael made a clanging sound. Bang. Bang. One after another, the young eagles of Dressrosa Castle sat down on the ground, taking off their helmets with difficulty, and Thor was no exception. At this moment, he was panting heavily, and his lungs felt like they were about to explode. Others were not much better. Everyone was trying to calm down the feeling that their chests were about to explode after exercise. Some people even sat cross-legged, trying to seize every moment to see if they could condense the seeds of life. Thor looked at his brothers, calmed down slightly, and then sat cross-legged as well, carefully feeling the source of life in his body. Time passed by minute. In the blink of an eye, more than half an hour passed. A breath of turbid air, exhaled, Thor slowly opened his eyes, with a hint of helplessness in his expression. Just like in the past, he was also unable to condense the seed of life this time. Even though he further felt more life force, it was still not enough. At this rate, he would need at least another year to condense the seed of life. But it was obvious that time would not give him another year. 3 days later, he would become an adult. If he could not condense the seed of life, he would become a wandering knight, and even the title of Dressrosa would be deprived. Unless he could obtain the title of the kingdom again, there would be a possibility of getting it back again. But if he lost the qualification of a knight, it would be a foolish dream to want to get the title of the kingdom. That was a real noble. Damn it, why didn't I bring a golden finger with me when I traveled through time? Muttering to himself, Thor's expression was helpless. It was also a bit uncomfortable. At the beginning, he hadn't enjoyed the good days for a few days, and he was about to become a wandering knight. This situation was really not so comfortable. Sighing, his figure was about to get up. The sticky feeling all over his body made him extremely uncomfortable, and he needed to wash up. But just as he was about to stand up, a mechanical voice suddenly rang in his mind. World matching. Matching successful. Character matching. Matching successful. Congratulations on obtaining the daily intelligence system. Do you want to turn it on? The mechanical voice was extremely abrupt, and at the same time, a stream of information poured into his mind. Along with the mechanical voice and the influx of information, Thor, who was originally in a sigh, suddenly widened his eyes, and a touch of surprise inevitably spread out. Goldfinger. He didn't expect that he actually had a goldfinger. Turn it on. He almost couldn't wait to speak. And at the moment of speaking, buzz. A ripple spread. At the same time, lines of text appeared. Daily intelligence updated. 1. Caven Dressrosa will awaken the seed of life at noon today and successfully become a qualified apprentice knight. 2. The maid Loris of Dressrosa Castle and the male servant Engel secretly fell in love. 3. A pig beast in Dressrosa Castle is about to give birth, and will give birth to 10 babies in the afternoon. 4. Ryan was strolling in the market in Lucerne today, and accidentally bought a live fruit from Mijiel's Fruit Shop. After taking it, he officially condensed the seed of life. 5. In Michael's stable, the horse he cherished most seemed to have some small emotions and needed the company of the mare for 2.5 years. 6. Engel Dressrosa seemed to have some troubles, which came from the limitations of his own strength. 7. 10. Golden characters flashed, followed by lines of text. Looking at these words and the information presented in his mind, Thor's joy could no longer be suppressed. It's not just the arrival of the golden finger, but more importantly the role of this golden finger. The daily intelligence system, as the name suggests, means that he can obtain daily related intelligence. He can refresh the intelligence of the day after midnight every day, and the intelligence system will give him no more than 10 relevant intelligence about the surroundings in turn. Such an ability is simply a bug. Information is always the most important wealth, no matter which world or for whom. Just like the intelligence that was refreshed at this moment, there was an intelligence option that was imminent and could even solve his current dilemma. His eyes were fixed on the 4th item, and Thor couldn't help but feel a little excited. Chapter 2: The Role of Daily Intelligence, Obtaining the Fruit of Life. For Thor, the most important thing now is undoubtedly to gather the seeds of life and become a trainee knight. It was almost difficult to do it originally. At his current speed, it would take at least a year, but in 3 days he will become an adult. When the time comes that he is unable to become a trainee knight, he will have to be exiled. 3 days is simply not enough. Unless he can obtain a high-level life potion that contains a large amount of life source power, there is basically no hope. It contains a large amount of high-level life potion. Let alone him, even his father, Engel Dressrosa, would have a hard time obtaining a bottle. Otherwise, his father would not be restricted to the knights of the earth. Peaked. He was even more hopeless. However, this time, he had a possibility. The fruit of life is the product of advanced magic plants and is the main material of advanced life potions. Even if it is taken alone, its effect is half that of a high-level life potion, which is completely enough to help him condense the seeds of life. Just like in the intelligence, that Ren directly condensed the life seeds. Thinking of this, Thor couldn't hold himself back at all. He quickly stood up and headed towards his room. Master Thor. Master Thor. On the way, the male and female servants were all bowing respectfully. Amidst the sounds, his figure returned directly to the room. Under the service of the servants, he quickly took off his armor, washed himself, and put on noble clothes. Immediately, they left Dressrosa Castle without stopping. 3 knights followed behind him. Although there are only 3 reserve knights. However, this is also the last 3 days that he can enjoy. Once 3 days later, he cannot condense the life seeds, let alone these 3 knights, even the servants will not have them. At most, they will give them some gold coins, and they will not be able to too much. However, Thor had no intention of paying attention to this at the moment. His figure rode a white horse and quickly headed towards his destination. As the Earl of Dressrosa, Engel Dressrosa's territory is naturally not only Dressrosa Castle. In fact, it also rules 10 surrounding towns, large and small. The scope is probably as large as a small county in the previous life. Lucerne is a small town. The town is one of these 10 small towns. It is not far from Dressrosa Castle, only 30 or 40 kilometers. After riding on horseback for about an hour, we arrived at the small town of Lucerne. When Thor arrives, the town's affairs officer couldn't help being startled, and hurried over to greet him. Master Thor. The clerk spoke nervously. It's none of your business, I'm just here to take a look. Thor waved his hand and dismissed the affairs officer directly. Yes, The affairs officer nodded quickly, not daring to stop, and quickly retreated. Thor, on the other hand, dismounted and began to search. Originally, he was still thinking about how to find Miji's fruit and meat shop. After all, although the town is not big, it is not small either. It is not that easy to find a shop. But soon, this worry disappeared. Because after shopping around, he found that there was only one fruit and meat shop in the entire town. Obviously, this is the one. Thor stepped into the butcher's shop. The owner of the pulp shop, Mijiel, suddenly became nervous. Master, what do you need? Mijiel sounded anxiously. Thor did not answer, but carefully felt his surroundings. Seeing that Thor didn't answer, Mijiel didn't dare to interrupt and just followed behind. The aura of the fruit of life is extremely restrained, but as Thor, who has learned the knight's breathing technique, he can quickly feel the strangeness as long as he feels it. Soon Thor felt something strange among the pile of pear-like fruits. With a happy expression, the figure walked over immediately. Soon, his figure came to the place where the fruit was. Pack these for me, I want them. Thor spoke, motioning to Mijiel. Yes, yes. Mijiel couldn't help but feel a little bitter, but he nodded quickly. Quickly started wrapping it up. Give him a silver coin. Thor took it and then motioned to a knight behind him. Yes, master. The knight was stunned for a moment, but he nodded and took out a silver coin. Master, this. Mijiel looked happy and subconsciously wanted to take it, but he hesitated. Take it. We, the Dressrosa family, will not rob civilians of their belongings. Thor suppressed his excitement, spoke calmly, and then turned and left with the three knights. Thank you, sir. Mijiel was moved and quickly thanked him. But it was obvious that Thor was nowhere to be seen. Thor got what he wanted and quickly left the town, returning to Castle Dressrosa. And it was less than half an hour after leaving. A young man wearing somewhat shabby clothes also came to Miji's fruit shop. Go, I don't have anything here. Mijiel spoke with a somewhat impatient voice. Boss, give me a sour fruit. The young man spoke timidly, and after groping for a long time with his dirty hands, he took out an iron coin. He's actually rich. Take this. Mijiel was a little surprised, but after thinking about it, he took out one of the sour fruits that Thor had picked out before and handed it to the boy. Thanks. The young man quickly thanked him and left in a hurry. It's just that the trajectory of history has changed at this moment. The boy who was supposed to be changed by chance when he got the life fruit seemed to have returned to the starting point again. On the other side, the fate that should have been fixed had a twist at this moment. Returning to Castle Dressrosa, Thor couldn't wait to return to his room. After asking all the servants to retreat, his gaze was fixed on the life fruit. As for the other sour fruits, he threw them aside casually. Looking at this ordinary fruit, Thor felt excited, and he couldn't help but feel a touch of excitement spreading in his heart. Fruit of life. This is the fruit of life. Even if his father, Engel, and Dressrosa knew about it, they would probably be tempted. Because with this fruit, it is almost 100% possible to redeem it for a bottle of high-level life potion. With such a value, even the Earth Knight will be tempted, let alone others. Put in the outside world, it would be enough to cause countless Earth Knights to fight to the death. As long as he handed over this thing, his father would be 100% willing to keep him in Dressrosa Castle, even if he was just a moth. Rules, when the benefits are great enough, may not be so important. At least that's what Thor thought. Chapter 3 Taking the Fruit of Life and Breaking Through as an Apprentice Knight. Thoughts flowed. Thoughts intertwined one after another. Finally, Thor chuckled and put the fruit of life into his mouth without any hesitation. He took a bite. The flesh instantly turned into a warm current that spread to the whole body. The next moment, Thor only felt an extremely hot feeling all over his body, and at the same time, the life force that was originally there and not there began to stir rapidly. The life force contained in the fruit of life is undoubtedly extremely huge. As the main material of high-level life potions, the life force it contains is enough to allow an Earth Knight to have a chance to be promoted to a Sky Knight. Such a huge life force is almost like an ocean for an existence that is not yet an apprentice knight. Fortunately, the life force contained in the fruit of life is extremely mild. It will not cause an explosion and death. Even if a large amount of life force cannot be absorbed, it is quickly integrated into Thor's flesh and blood to lay the foundation for him. But even so, the feeling of heat is still unbearable. Sweat dripped down in large drops. Thor's body seemed to be filled with gas at this moment, and the extreme discomfort continued to spread. Thor gritted his teeth, swallowed all the fruits into his stomach in 3 or 2 mouthfuls, and then sat cross-legged. He gathered his thoughts with difficulty and began to practice the night breathing method. The night method of the Dressrosa family, called eagle breathing method, is the most advanced breathing method, and it is also the best for mobilizing life force. When the breathing method was used, Thor felt that his eyes were empty, and the life force in his body began to gather rapidly towards his chest. Time passed by minute. I don't know how long it has been. I don't know how long it lasted. Thor's clothes were soaked with sweat and gradually dried. When the blood-red moonlight gradually embellished the sky. Night fell. In the room, Thor suddenly opened his eyes. And it was the moment he opened his eyes that he felt the difference in the whole world. He could clearly see the tiny dust in the air, and could also detect the sound of insects outside the window that he could not hear in the past. He could even hear the sound of servants walking in the corridor. At this moment, the whole world changed. No, not the whole world, but his perception of the whole world has changed dramatically. The 5 senses have been unprecedentedly improved. The body is even changing at this moment. If you can see inside his body at this moment, you will find that a green light point the size of a grain of rice is quietly suspended in the center of his heart, with a faint glow, and the blood in the heart is constantly being stained, and then spreading to the limbs. And the blood stained by the green light has also brought subtle changes to the whole body. Night. This is the extraordinary power of this world. Only those who have condensed the seeds of life can be called apprentice knights. Because the power given by the seed of life is incomparable, it can subtly change the various attributes of the human body: strength, agility, reaction, perception, everything. Every apprentice knight has a power that ordinary people cannot match. Even if you join the nobles, you will be treated well. In my memory, every apprentice knight in my father's knight group has an income of 10 silver coins a month. You should know that the annual expenses of an ordinary family of 3 are probably only 10 silver coins. It can be said that there is a world of difference. This is why he finally chose to swallow the fruit of life. Maybe he gave the fruit of life to his father, and he could stay and be a parasite. But let's not talk about it for now. This is just a possibility, not necessarily. The family rules of the Dressrosa family are extremely strict, and no one can be sure that his father will really be like this. And even if it is possible, is it really what he wants to do, to travel to this world and become a parasite? Extraordinary power. In a wonderful world, which traveler does not have aspirations? Thor is no exception. In this case, how to choose is self-evident. As for his father, he has a daily intelligence system. If he really has an idea, he believes there will be a chance. A smile appeared on his face. Thor clenched his fists involuntarily. Next is to see my father. Muttering to himself, he stood up and called the servants to wash and change clothes. When he walked out of the room again, his figure was already very neat and his temperament had obviously changed. Walking in the castle, one maid after another looked sideways from time to time. When the figure passed by, the maids' voices of discussion began to sound. Master Thor, it seems a little different today. Yes, Master Thor seems to be more glorious. Master Thor seems to look much better today. The trainee knight's keen hearing allowed him to hear the maids' discussions even if he left. He was not too surprised by this. Condensing the seeds of life, he would have undergone great changes from the inside out, and even ordinary people could detect it. This will be more obvious if he becomes a knight. Only when he can reach a higher level can he restrain this kind of change. At this moment, he is still just an apprentice knight. Of course, he can't do it. But he doesn't need to hide it. In fact, it's only 2 days away from his adulthood. What he needs more is to show his strength to his father, the owner of Dressrosa Castle, Count Engel, Dressrosa. Step forward. His figure came to the 3rd floor of the castle. This is the highest point of Dressrosa Castle, and it is also the place where Count Engel Dressrosa stayed all year round. In the past, at this time, Engel Dressrosa would read in this study. This day is no exception. Engel Dressrosa is in front of the bookcase, just flipping through the general history of the continent in his hand. But no one noticed that the Earl's thoughts did not stay on the general history of the continent, but drifted to an unknown place. It's been 90 years. A long voice sounded, with a sigh and a deep worry. After sighing, the whole room fell into silence again. Until, knock, knock. There was a slight sound from the door. Then the voice of the butler Charlie sounded. My lord Earl, Master Thor wants to see you. The voice was not loud, but it brought Engeldrerosa's thoughts back to the gods. Thor, come in. Engeldrerosa frowned slightly. He didn't care too much about his ninth son. After all, his talent was too poor, almost the last among all his sons. But after thinking about it, he still responded. Chapter 4 Count Engeldrerosa. Creaky. The wooden door made a sound, the door was opened, and Thor walked in. His sight quickly noticed a middle-aged man in front of the bookcase. This was also the first time he saw his nominal father since he traveled through time. Count Engeldrerosa. Also the fourth generation of Dressrosa. Yes, the fourth generation. The Dressrosa family does not have a long history like other nobles. The Dressrosa family has only been around for 300 years since the first generation of the family head. 300 years ago, the Dressrosa family rose due to the Kingdom War. In just 300 years, it has established the current prominent status of the Earl. It is a miracle in the entire Tulip Kingdom. Duke, Marquis, Earl, Viscount, and Baron, the Earl is already a high-ranking noble. Nobles who have lived for thousands of years are just Earls. Of course, these have nothing to do with Thor at the moment. His eyes are more focused on his father. Engeldrerosa, the first impression he gives people is calmness, a burly figure, some gray hair, and bright eyes, all of which give people a sense of oppression, not to mention the mysterious aura around him. As the top of the Earth Knights, Engeldrerosa is a well-known existence even in the entire Frost Moon province. He is one of the top few people in the entire Frost Moon province. That kind of oppression is real. Hello, father. Thor took a deep breath, suppressed the beating of his heart, and saluted respectfully. Not bad, you actually broke through. It seems that you will not be the 29th expelled heir of the family. With a somewhat unexpected voice, Engeldrerosa's expression was a little surprised at first, and then turned into calmness. Just an apprentice knight, he would not attract too much attention from him. Naturally, there was no surprise. Thanks to the guidance of father. Thor's heart jumped, but he still spoke quickly. I have never taught you, and I never thought you could break through the trainee knight. You don't need to thank me. Earl Engeldrerosa waved his hand, and then fell into deep thought. And Thor did not interrupt, but waited quietly beside him. Thor, I thought you could not become a trainee knight. I have prepared a parting gift, but since you have become a trainee knight, you probably won't need it. You have two choices now. Earl Engeldrerosa spoke slowly after a pause. Please speak frankly, father. Thor's heart was straightened, and his words became respectful again. My Dressrosa family originated from the Kingdom War. Today's territory is all fought for by the descendants of the family. Since the first generation of patriarchs 300 years ago, the Dressrosa family has given every descendant of the family a chance to choose, and you are the same. Quote. From today on, you can choose to stay in the family and become the family guardian knight. You will receive 1 gold coin every month, or you can choose to become a pioneer knight. 20 years ago, the kingdom established the northern province in the northern border. The family will give you some support, and you can go there to become a pioneer knight. Quote. Engeldrerosa's words sounded slowly. Two choices, two different options. Listening to his father's words, Thor couldn't help but fall into deep thought. He really didn't expect that there would be two choices. He had already made plans to become the family guardian knight, but now there is a new choice. Just facing this choice, he couldn't help but hesitate. The first one is undoubtedly extremely stable, but the upper limit is undoubtedly locked. As the son of Dressrosa, he can't inherit the title. The highest achievement is only the knight commander. No matter how noble the knight commander is, he is not a true noble. It can be said that in the Frost Moon province, unless the Kingdom War breaks out again, he is basically like this. And the upper limit of the latter is undoubtedly higher. Thor still knows something about the Pioneer Knight. This is a special existence in the kingdom. Every knight can become a Pioneer Knight. As long as he can occupy with enough territory and enough subjects, one can be canonized as a baron. Although it is only the lowest baron, it is still a noble, not only recognized by the Tulip Kingdom, but also by other kingdoms. But similarly, the danger of the second item is also unpredictable. The so-called pioneering knight, the most important thing is to explore. The establishment of the North Province has only been 20 years, and it is full of monsters and chaotic order. Even from the mouth of the bard, it can be heard that there are many pioneering knights who die every year. If he goes there, he may be one of them. Facing Thor's contemplation, Count Engel Dressrosa did not urge him, but waited quietly, and his eyes were once again on the general history of the continent. Time passed slowly. Until a moment later. Thor suddenly looked up. Father, I have decided that I will become the eagle of the Dressrosa family and establish merits for the family again. Quote. The words began to flow. As he spoke, Count Engeldrerosa's eyes moved away and focused on Thor, and then a smile appeared on his face. Looking at this smile, Thor's heart moved, thinking. Thor, you are worthy of being the young eagle of our Dressrosa family. As a father, I am proud of you. Go, you can stay in the castle for a month. After a month, I, your father, will prepare a generous gift for you to help the young eagle of the Dressrosa family spread its wings. Count Engel Dressrosa spoke with a smile and waved his hand. Thank you, father. I won't bother you, father. Thor nodded and then left the room. Until watching Thor leave, Engel Dressrosa put his eyes on the history of the continent again. Until a moment later, the butler Charlie came in. Engel Dressrosa looked up after a slight hesitation. Let Michael come over. Also, go to the warehouse and move the fourth box in the third row on the left. No, the third box in the second row. Thoughts flowed, and the words began to flow. Yes. Charlie looked a little surprised, but he quickly responded respectfully and left. Soon, Michael arrived at the study. Mr. Earl. Michael said respectfully. Sit down. Michael, how many official knights are there in the Knights of Blazing Fire now? Count Engel Dressrosa hesitated for a moment, and asked. 234, Mr. Earl. Michael nodded, then thought for a moment and said a number. 234. Okay, you can pick 30 out of them in the next few days, and another 300 from the Eagle Knights. The eagle of our Dressrosa family is about to spread its wings, and I, as a father, need to give him a gift. The voice spoke with a chuckle. Yes. Michael was a little shocked, but he nodded quickly and agreed. Chapter 5. An important piece of information. Thor was naturally unaware of the preparations his father had made for him. He returned to his room, still restless in his heart. Pioneer Knight. Even he had never thought that there would be such a choice. And he actually chose it. Of course, the reason for all this is the golden finger. Without the golden finger, Thor would naturally not consider the second option. The benefits of the second option are indeed very high, but the risks are also very high. Without sufficient strength, the Pioneer Knight is just a delivery man. But everything is different with the golden finger. Especially his golden finger. The daily intelligence system randomly refreshes the surrounding intelligence every day, which is undoubtedly unimaginable for the Pioneer Knight. He can get a fruit of life in the town, so what about the entire northern province? He can get more than here. Identity, strength, status, he will be able to easily obtain them, which is undoubtedly more promising than staying in Dressrosa Castle. As for the risks for others, the daily intelligence system can also allow him to avoid them. In this way, there is no need to say more about how to choose. Of course, Thor is still a little nervous after choosing. After all, the Pioneer Knight is not a castle, and there are still many dangers. After a slight hesitation, Thor called his personal valet. Pete, go to the library and get me some books about the northern province and the Pioneer Knights. Thor opened his mouth and ordered his personal valet. Yes, Master Thor, I'll go right away. Pete was a little shocked, but he nodded and left quickly. About half an hour later, a thick stack of books appeared in front of Thor. I don't know if it is the influence of extraordinary power. This world is very similar to the Middle Ages in the previous life, but it is a little different. Paper is already very popular in this world. Although the Dressrosa family has only been around for 300 years, there are still many books collected. Even those about the northern province and the Pioneer Knights are not few. Thor took a deep breath and then began to calm down and read. Although he has made preparations and understands that his golden finger will play a big role. But it is also necessary to understand as much as possible. The night gradually passed. Stars dotted the bed. Peter brought the food, and Thor went back to reading after eating. He didn't put down the last book in his hand until the moon was completely high. Northern Province. Thor muttered to himself, his eyes thoughtful. At this moment, he had flipped through books and had a certain understanding of the Northern Province and the Pioneer Knights. Northern Province. This is the province established by the Tulip Kingdom in the wild area of the North. It has only been more than 20 years. It is the newest province. There are many monsters in it, and a large number of knights and people are needed to explore and develop. Therefore, the Pioneer Knights exist. The kingdom shines the light of the goddess of life on the northern province, so that all Pioneer Knights will have a chance to obtain the status of a noble in the kingdom. As long as you can develop a small town in the northern province and have no less than 5,000 people, you can be canonized as a baron of the kingdom and become a new noble. It is precisely because of this that countless knights have flocked to the northern province in the past 20 years. But the result is not too good. In the vast northern province, only 56 barons have been canonized in the past 20 years. You should know that there are probably no less than 300 viscounts in the Frost Moon province alone, and the number of barons may even reach thousands. In the entire northern province, there are only 56 barons in the past 20 years, and that is a total. Now it seems that there are only 36 surviving barons. As for the remaining 20, you can imagine the ending. These are the canonized ones. Those knights who have not been canonized will undoubtedly suffer more losses. Chaos, disorder, and danger are the best and most realistic portrayals of the entire northern province. Even if you just look at Thor, your brows jump. Even regret your choice. The degree of danger seems a bit too high. He is just an apprentice knight, with small arms and legs. Can he really survive in that environment? But just as his brows were twitching, the mechanical voice sounded in his mind again. Ding! The intelligence system has been updated. Open it. The mechanical voice sounded. Open it. Thor's eyes lit up, and he didn't care whether he regretted it or not, and hurriedly opened it. The first time the intelligence system was opened, it gave him a huge harvest. At this moment, he was looking forward to opening it for the second time. This moment finally came. And as he finished speaking. Buzz. Daily intelligence updated. 1. The maid Loris of Dressrosa Castle and the male servant Engel secretly fell in love. 2. The male servant of Dressrosa Castle buried a purse under the acacia tree on the right side of the martial arts training ground, which contained 10 silver coins. 3. Dressrosa Castle. 4. Ryan did not buy the seeds of life in the town yesterday, and his fate could not be changed. The future Sky Knight is about to be beaten to death by his drunken father Hunter. 5. In Michael's stable, the horse he cherished the most seemed to have some small emotions and needed the company of the mare for 2.5 years. 6. Engel Dressrosa seemed to have some troubles, which came from the limitation of his own strength. 7. 10. In the town of Rosen, villager Philia seemed to have made an unexpected discovery. He found that the accumulation of feces seemed to make crops grow faster. He carefully hid it for fear of being discovered by others. The golden characters appeared, and today's intelligence was presented again. Just like yesterday, there were also 10 pieces. Thor's eyes were serious, sweeping through the pieces of information. Many of them overlapped with yesterday, only a few were different, and his eyes were mostly fixed on these different pieces of information. Feces. Thor whispered, looking at the 10th piece of different information and shook his head. The information blockade in this world is extremely serious, especially at the bottom. It is normal to have this seen. His eyes continued to look at other things. But as he read on, his calmness and expectation suddenly changed, and his pupils widened. Fuck. Sky Knight. In an instant, he couldn't help but spit out the words of his previous life. His sight was fixed on the 4th piece of information. His eyes widened, and he couldn't help but wipe his eyes, fearing that he had seen it wrong. But even if he rubbed his eyes several times, the text still appeared. At this moment, Thor only felt that his mouth was dry. Sky Knight. What did he see? The future Sky Knight. This eye-catching handwriting almost made his heart stop beating. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 6 The Future Sky Knight. On this continent, extraordinary power exists in the form of knights, and the levels of knights are also strictly divided. Starting from the apprentice knight who condensed the seeds of life, there are apprentice knights, knights, great knights, earth knights, sky knights, and holy knights. Among them, once the knights of the earth are reached, They are already regarded as the top combat power of the kingdom, just like his father, Engel Dressrosa is a knight at the peak of the earth. This is true for all the Earth Knights, and the Sky Knights are even more powerful in the kingdom. Each Sky Knight can be said to be the true heritage of the kingdom and the foundation for whether the kingdom can continue. Thor never thought that in today's daily intelligence, a Sky Knight unexpectedly appeared, and it was the same figure who unexpectedly received the life fruit yesterday. From the intelligence, it was obvious that because he cut off the fruit of life belonging to the other party, the fate of the other party was deflected. The trajectory of changes that was supposed to take place after swallowing the fruit of life has returned to the starting point again. Maybe I can try it. Muttering to himself, Thor's eyes showed a hint of something about to move. There is even an idea of AAAA starting immediately. But after thinking about it, I finally suppressed my thoughts. He called a servant to wash himself. Night passed. When the morning sun shines, Thor woke up from the big bed. On this day, he did not train as usual. Since he had become a trainee knight, he did not need to train anymore. He took a look at the daily intelligence content. Then he took his 3 knights and set off again. Target town Lucerne. An hour later, his figure arrived at the small town of Lucerne. Facing the reappearance of Master Thor, the Lucerne Town Affairs officer couldn't help but feel uneasy in his heart and greeted him again. Secretary, I need to find a young man named Ren, and his father's name is Hunter. Thor sat on the horse and spoke calmly. Yes, Master Thor, I will find it for you right away. The clerk was a little confused, but he nodded quickly and left in a hurry. About half an hour later, the clerk returned with a document. Master Thor, Hunter lives in Louis Village on the west side of the town. Please come with me. The steward sounded respectfully. Good. Thor nodded, then rode his horse and followed the steward towards the goal. And at the same time, Fallen Leaf Village. In a dilapidated house. Bump. Trash, you can't even buy a drink. An angry voice sounded, followed by the sound of heavy objects falling. In the room, a middle-aged man with rosacea and a messy head was angrily yelling, while the young man in front of him was huddled in the corner without saying a word. Speak, why don't you speak? Where's the wine? The middle-aged man's angry voice continued, and the next moment he picked up the bottle and threw it at the boy. Bump. Wow. The bottle collided, hitting his head directly and shattering instantly. The boy groaned, and the blood on his head was cut by the bottle fragments, and bright red blood flowed. However, even so, the middle-aged man still didn't care at all. Trash, all rubbish, Ren, let me tell you, without me, you would have starved to death. Go, get me some wine. The middle-aged man's voice sounded again, but the young man was still huddled in the corner. And this undoubtedly makes the middle-aged man increasingly angry. Why? I don't want to go. If you don't go, I will sell it to you. It is said that the nobles like it the most. Hurry up. There was still an opening, and the next moment he picked up a wine bottle again and threw it at the young man. However, the bottle has just been flushed out. Bump. A white light flashed, and the wine bottle instantly shattered in midair. Then a deep voice sounded. Stop. When the voice fell, the middle-aged man couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, and then became even more angry. Well, you actually brought an outsider to your home. It seems like you really don't take me seriously, Ren. The middle-aged man is about to pick up the bottle again. However, at this moment, a somewhat cold voice sounded again. I said stop, didn't you hear me? The words were already a bit cold. Then several figures suddenly appeared in the small room. In the confusion, the strong man finally saw the person clearly, and this moment made him wake up from his drunkenness. Bang! The wine bottle was smashed down, and his figure fell directly to the ground. Grown-ups. The middle-aged man was lying on the ground, his body was trembling, and his heart suddenly fell into boundless panic. But it was obvious that Thor didn't care about this at this moment. His figure passed directly over the middle-aged man and came to the corner. Are you okay? Sounded with a gentle voice. The young man raised his head suddenly, but quickly reacted and quickly knelt down. However, the long-term hunger and the severe beating made the young man stumble and fall directly to the ground. Thor was startled and quickly held the young man back. Then he quickly checked it out. The flow of life force made him feel relieved. The boy was not in any danger of life, he just fainted. He handed the boy to the knight next to him. Thor hesitated for a moment before speaking to another knight. Give him a gold coin, and Ryan will have nothing to do with him in the future. Thor said calmly. Yes. The knight beside him nodded, and quickly took out a gold coin and threw it on the ground. Sir, it is a blessing for Ryan to follow you. Don't worry, sir, I won't contact Ryan again in the future. Looking at the glittering gold coins on the ground, the middle-aged man crawled and rolled over, quickly put away the gold coin, and said 1,000 thanks. Thor ignored it. For this kind of person, there is no need for him to pay attention. Giving a gold coin is all for the boy's face. But that's all. The figure took the boy away quickly. The middle-aged man still looked at the gold coin with shining eyes, and even wiped it and bit it with his mouth, and the joy on his face could not be concealed. But it was obvious that at this moment he did not know what he was going to lose. That was a Sky Knight, an existence that was enough to stand at the top of the kingdom. Of course, he could not imagine that his son, whom he despised in the past, would become a Sky Knight in the future. In his view now, a loss of money can be exchanged for a gold coin, which is extremely worthwhile. Originally, his idea was to use him to exchange for some wine money. It would be good if the nobles could give him 2 or 3 silver coins. He dared not even think about gold coins. Chapter 7. Conquer, Guardian Knight. Return to the castle. Handing Ryan to the servant, Ryan soon received the corresponding treatment. An hour later, Ryan slowly woke up from his deep sleep. The comfortable big bed made him feel extremely uncomfortable, and at the same time, a stream of fragrance filled his nose, causing his Adam's apple to roll. Gudong. His Adam's apple rolled subconsciously. But when his eyes saw everything clearly in front of him, he was startled and quickly got up, looking a little flustered. Because at this moment he was in a luxurious room. Everything he saw in front of him was something he could not imagine. Even if it was any one of them, he could not afford to sell it. What frightened him even more was that at this moment he was wearing extremely gorgeous clothes, which were only worn by the nobles who had seen him from afar in the past. It is said that each piece requires silver coins to buy. Growing up, he had only come into contact with iron coins the most, and even copper coins had only been seen 3 years ago, not to mention silver coins, which he dared not even think about. However, just as he was in a panic. Creaky. The door made a slight sound, and a servant dressed as a servant walked in. This. Ryan was a little flustered, and he spoke subconsciously, but he didn't know how to say it. Don't be nervous. Master Thor, let you see him after you finish eating. A gentle voice sounded, and the servant spoke respectfully. Listening to the other party's respectful words, Ryan felt like he was in a dream. And when the other party gestured, he found that the table next to him was full of food. It was no longer the black bread that was almost unpalatable to the point of being difficult to swallow, but an extremely exquisite meal, even with a lot of meat. Gudong. Subconsciously, Ryan's Adam's apple rolled again, and Ryan couldn't help but want to move forward, but he was a little hesitant. Can I eat it? Ryan spoke carefully, and there was still some uncertainty in his heart. Of course, this is prepared for you by Master Thor. Please eat it as soon as possible, otherwise it will be cold and not delicious. The servant still spoke with a smile. Looking at the other person's expression and smile, Ryan couldn't help but walk forward hungry. He began to eat in a hurry. However, when the food entered his mouth, tears unconsciously flowed from his eyes, and he was forced to suppress it again. He ate this meal very quickly. Originally, he would taste such a rich food slowly, but thinking of the servant's words, he couldn't help but speed up. After a moment, he slowed down. Followed the servant towards Thor. On the training ground, Thor was practicing the skills of a knight. Condensing the seeds of life to become an apprentice knight does not mean that he does not need to continue practicing. In fact, continuing to practice and continue to gather more life force is the key to whether he can truly become a knight. Even with a golden finger, Thor will naturally not relax. Next to him is the knight commander Mijiel. Watching Thor's practice at this moment, Mijiel was also a little surprised. Mijiel was also very familiar with this young master. In the past few years, his talent was very mediocre. I didn't expect that he would make rapid progress in the past few days and become an apprentice knight. And he was obviously much better at practicing than before, and he was obviously more serious. It seems that Master Thor has really grown up. Mijiel said with emotion. While he was sighing, his eyebrows slightly raised and his eyes looked forward. At this moment, the servant was walking over with Ryan in the distance. But Mijiel just took a look and then didn't care anymore. As for Thor, although he saw it, he didn't stop, but finished all the practice. Master Thor, your knight's skills are already very proficient. As long as you continue to practice, you should have a chance to be promoted to a knight within 10 years. Mijiel said with a smile. Thank you Uncle Mijiel for your advice. Thor nodded. He didn't care too much about Michael's words. He still had some idea of his talent. After that, he looked at Ryan and the servant. Master Thor. My lord. The servant spoke to Ryan. Yes, it seems that you have recovered well. Thor nodded with a smile and looked at Ryan with satisfaction. At this moment, Ryan was dressed in aristocratic clothes, with golden curly hair and lively eyes. He almost gave people a very delicate feeling, which was completely different from the previous dirty scene. Sir. Ryan spoke subconsciously, but he didn't know what to say for a while. Are you willing to be my guardian knight? If you are willing, I can let someone teach you the knight's training method. Looking at Ryan who was hesitant to speak, Thor smiled and didn't beat around the bush, but spoke directly. In this era that is almost like the Middle Ages, there is naturally no need to do any drama to win people's hearts, nor to perform too much. He is a noble. Ryan is a commoner. This itself is enough to summarize many things. Just like this moment, Mijiel looked at Ryan with some surprise. And at this moment, Ryan raised his head instantly, his eyes were shocked, and he looked at Thor with a touch of surprise. Sir. As soon as he spoke, Ryan's heart was beating violently. He was a commoner, but he knew about knights. They were high-ranking masters. He had never thought that he would become such a being one day. Why don't you want to? Looking at Ryan's wide eyes, Thor's voice with a smile sounded. Yes, I do. Sir, I swear in the name of the goddess of life that I, Ryan, will become a knight who loyally protects you. As Ryan spoke, green light filled the surroundings, and then a diamond-shaped mark instantly appeared between Ryan's eyebrows. In this land, all the light is bathed by the goddess of life. Whoever swears in the name of the goddess of life will be echoed. Ryan swore in the name of the goddess of life at this moment, completing Thor's answer. Looking at this scene, Thor's face was a little surprised, but then he smiled. Everything went better than he imagined. At this moment, Ryan truly became his guardian knight. Guardianship contract, witnessed by life, witnessed by loyalty, can only be created by the most loyal people from the bottom of their hearts. This is voluntary. It cannot be forced. And once it is concluded, it also means that Ryan has truly become his most loyal knight. Ha ha ha, good. From today on, you are my guardian knight, and my first guardian knight. Uncle Mijiel, can you teach Ryan these days? Thor smiled and nodded, then looked at Mijiel who was surprised beside him, and spoke with a request. Okay. Mijiel hesitated slightly, glanced at Ryan, and then nodded in agreement. Chapter 8 Ryan's terrifying talent. Thor ignored Ryan after handing him over to Mijiel. He still trusted Mijiel very much. As his father's right-hand man, his strength was beyond words. He was a knight of the earth and the top warrior in the entire Dressrosa castle, second only to his father. More importantly, he was very good at teaching. After being taught by Mijiel, his brothers even had a peak knight. In addition, the number of knights in the entire Knights Order was larger than the original scale under Michael's teaching. Handing Ryan over to Mijiel for teaching was enough for Ryan to lay a good foundation. However, even Thor did not expect it. Ryan's talent was even more terrifying than he imagined. In less than half a month, while Thor was still preparing for the development of knights and obtaining useful existence through his intelligence system, Mijiel called him over. What? Ryan, are you ready to break through the trainee knight? Listening to Michael's words, Thor couldn't help but be shocked at this moment, and couldn't help but blurt out the words. Yes. Master Thor, I can't believe it either, but it is true. The life force in Ryan's body has reached a sufficient level. At the latest, these 3 days should be enough to break through to the apprentice knight. I am going to apply for a bottle of low-level life potion from the earl. Mijiel was also shocked at this moment. Even though he had seen Ryan's talent these days, he was still deeply shocked at this moment. Even if he was an Earth Knight, he was sure that Ryan had never practiced the Knight's Law. But in just half a month, the other party was about to break through to the apprentice knight. This talent was almost appalling. You have to know that even he, a person who can be called a powerful person in the kingdom, took 3 years to condense the life seed. Even the earl seemed to have taken a whole year to condense the life seed. Condensing the life seed in half a month. He simply couldn't imagine how high his talent was. Huh. Thank you, Uncle Michael. I know, Uncle Michael, I hope you can keep this a secret for me. Don't tell anyone except my father. Thor took a deep breath, then expressed his gratitude, and then hesitated for a moment before speaking. Although Ryan had become his guardian knight, Thor still didn't want to spread this matter in order to avoid accidents. Okay. After a slight hesitation, Michael glanced at Thor and finally nodded. Thank you, Uncle Michael. Thor nodded. You're welcome. Michael glanced at Thor deeply, and his heart was a little turbulent. He knew that Ryan was brought up from the poor by Master Thor. However, as the most loyal knight of the Dressrosa family, he naturally knew that there were some things he shouldn't ask, so he shouldn't ask. Don't even be curious. After speaking to Thor again, he walked into the castle. Since he said he was going to apply for low-level life potions, he would naturally not delay. In this regard, Thor did not follow. Instead, he went to see Ryan. Then he continued to work. Meanwhile, in the study, Michael had come to Engeldrerosa's study. He reported the matter. What? You said that Thor's guardian knight is about to break through the trainee knight. Hearing Michael's report, Count Engeldrerosa was shocked. Engeldrerosa naturally knew about his son's guardian knight and even sent someone to investigate. But that was all. He didn't care too much. Just a guardian knight, and a son of a poor man, what use could he have? But he never thought that Michael would bring him such news in just half a month. He naturally knew what Michael knew. Ryan had never been exposed to any knight training method before. As a result, he was about to break through the trainee knight in just half a month. After being shocked, Count Engeldrerosa felt his breathing become heavy. Yes, I've confirmed it. With the current situation, the probability of his life force breaking through is almost 70% to 80%. Michael nodded again. Looking at his knight commander's words again, Count Engeldrerosa began to walk back and forth, his eyes flickering constantly. Michael did not disturb him, but waited quietly. After a moment, Count Engeldrerosa paused. Charlie. The words began. Soon the door opened, and the butler Charlie walked in. Go get a bottle of low-level life potion, counter number 1, the 7th in the first row, no, the 3rd in the first row, and the 5th at counter number 2. Count Engeldrerosa spoke. Yes. Charlie was a little shocked, but nodded quickly. Michael, I know about this. As for the low-level life potion, I will let Thor deliver it later. You go back first. After giving the order, Count Engeldrerosa immediately spoke to Michael. Yes. Michael nodded, not too surprised, and left quickly. After Michael left, Count Engeldrerosa ordered the servant to call Thor over. Thor was still preparing, but when he heard his father's call, he had to put it down and go to the study. When Thor arrived, Charlie had already returned with the things. Father. Thor spoke respectfully. As he spoke, Count Engeldrerosa did not speak, but looked deeply at his son. Thor did not dare to disturb him, but continued to lower his head. But fortunately, Count Engeldrerosa did not continue to look. He spoke after a slight hesitation. Thor, you are very good. Here is a set of silver armor and a bottle of medium-level life potion. You can give them to your guardian knight. The words began. As he spoke, Thor couldn't help but look up instantly, with a look of surprise. Silver armor, intermediate life potion. He never thought that his father would be so generous. A set of silver armor is worth more than 100 gold coins, not to mention the intermediate life potion, which is useful for the Great Knight to break through the Earth Knight. It is worth at least 1,000 gold coins, and it is the kind that is in short supply. At this moment, his father actually asked him to hand it over to Ryan. Chapter 9 Count Engel's First Lesson. Father. Thor spoke subconsciously, looking at his father, Count Engeldrerosa, with some hesitation and shock in his expression. Thor, you have to know that although Ryan has become your guardian knight, the guardian knight only means that he will not betray, and does not represent anything else, nor can it represent anything else. As a qualified lord, you need to show your grace, your tolerance, and your authority. Count Engeldrerosa's words sounded slowly, with an inexplicable meaning. Thor was slightly startled, and then his expression became solemn. It is obvious that his father, Count Engeldrerosa, is teaching him at this moment. Naturally, Thor would not have any resistance to this. As a count, the wisdom and experience of Engeldrerosa are not comparable to him, even if he is a traverser. Looking at Thor's expression, Count Engeldrerosa also showed satisfaction. He hesitated for a moment before speaking again. Thor, the path of a pioneer knight is not easy. If you want to truly become a qualified pioneer knight, you first need to learn how to win people's hearts. Now you are the young master of Dressrosa Castle. The glory of the Dressrosa family can protect you, but once you become a pioneer knight, all this glory will be far away from you. You need to rely on your own wisdom to build your own territory and lead your own people. Ryan, very good, his talent is the strongest I have ever seen. If you can really conquer him, he will become your best helper in the future. Your talent is not strong, and I didn't have much hope for you, but my child, you seem to have given me a big surprise. When he spoke, he was solemn at first, and then smiled. Hearing his father's words, Thor was shocked and subconsciously wanted to speak, but was stopped by Count Engeldrerosa. Everyone has secrets. I don't need to explore your secrets. After all, you are my child. Now, and in the future, work hard. I hope my child can become the eagle of the Dressrosa family. Count Engeldrerosa chuckled, and did not bother about his son's problems, but signaled that he could leave. Yes, father, I won't let you down. Thor nodded, with a serious expression. Then a servant quickly stepped forward and helped Thor put on the silver armor and life potion. Watching Thor leave, Count Engeldrerosa's eyes flickered a little, and there was a smile on his face. It seems that I really saw it wrong. What an unexpected surprise. Charlie. After whispering, Count Engeldrerosa called again. Master. Butler Charlie walked in with a respectful voice. Go and get the second box from my number 1 storage room. Engeldrerosa's thoughts returned and he smiled. Yes. Charlie nodded and left quickly. Thor, I hope you won't let me down. The whispering voice spoke, and Count Engeldrerosa once again focused his eyes on the book in his hand. Thor, who was leaving at this moment, didn't know that because of Ryan's appearance, his father was going to increase his investment in him. If he knew, he would probably be happy for a while. Of course, even now, he is very happy. He came to the training ground with his servants. At this moment, Ryan was still training. Compared to half a month ago, Ryan's body was obviously stronger at this moment, and he was no longer as thin as before. At the same time, his spirit and energy also changed obviously. Thor was also very satisfied with this. After waiting for a while, Ryan stopped with a breath, and didn't bother to wipe the sweat on his head, and hurried over. Master Thor. Ryan spoke respectfully and saluted Thor. Not bad. It seems you have worked hard these days. This is your reward. Thor smiled and waved his hand. 2 servants quickly stepped forward and moved a large and a small box to Ryan. Master Thor. This. Ryan subconsciously wanted to refuse, but was stopped by Thor. You are my guardian knight, you can't be so poor, take a look. While stopping, Thor smiled and spoke. Then, thank you, Master. Although Ryan was still a little hesitant and uneasy, thinking about Thor's words, he still responded, and his figure carefully opened the first big box. When the box was opened, a silver light appeared, and his eyes were instantly attracted. This is a silver armor, even if you become a great knight in the future, you can use it. Thor chuckled again and spoke. Thank you, young master. Ryan quickly spoke respectfully, his hands trembling a little. At this moment, he was no longer a rookie. Following Mijiel in training, he naturally understood the preciousness of the silver armor. At this moment, he actually got one directly. His excitement and trembling, as well as his gratitude to Thor, can be imagined. Take a look at the other one, that one is more suitable for you at this moment. Thor waved his hand and then pointed to another small box. Yes. Hearing Thor's words, Ryan was a little nervous, but he still carefully opened another wooden box. This box is not big, but very small. When it is opened, there is a small glass test tube filled with green liquid. When Ryan saw the green liquid, he was a little confused at first, and then he felt that his breathing became heavy, and his face showed an unbelievable look. The green liquid is more precious than the silver armor, which made him think of something at the first time, but he still couldn't believe it. Because that thing is too precious. It is so precious that he can't imagine it at all. If the silver armor, when he started to practice the knight's law, still had a hint of expectation, then he would never think of that thing, because it is impossible. This is a life potion. As he spoke, Ryan looked at Thor, his breathing became rapid. Yes, this is a bottle of mid-level life potion. Its value is almost 10 times that of a low-level life potion. With it, you can step into the trainee knight 100%. Thor sighed and looked at the life potion in front of him. To be honest, if it weren't for the daily intelligence system, he would have wanted to hack this bottle of life potion directly. After all, even he had never drunk this thing. It is true that every direct descendant of the Dressrosa family will have a bottle of life potion every year, but the problem is that it is not a mid-level life potion, but a low-level life potion. The value is completely incomparable. With this bottle, he can have the confidence to step into the middle stage of the trainee knight. Chapter 10. 1 month, the gift of parting. In the study. The door was knocked. Master. Charlie's respectful voice sounded. How is it? Count Engel Dressrosa's voice sounded, and his eyes did not move away from the book. Master Thor has handed the life potion to Ryan. Butler Charlie's respectful voice sounded. Got it. You can leave. Count Engel Dressrosa nodded, and Butler Charlie immediately withdrew. Thor did not expect that this conversation was not only a teaching given by his father, but also a test for him. The value of the intermediate life potion is undoubtedly large enough. Even as a young eagle of the Dressrosa family, he has never come into contact with it. No one can be sure whether he will choose to stay. If he stays, it is indeed enough to make the knight's cultivation further. However, compared with his own improvement, the Lord is more important for resources and grasp of the future. If this point cannot be passed, his father will consider whether to cut some investment. However, such a test. In front of Thor, who has the daily intelligence system, it is obviously redundant. For him, he doesn't need to consider these at all. The daily intelligence system can bring him too much. A bottle of medium-level life potion is very important, but it is not that important to him. Although the daily intelligence system has not continued to give him more support these days, it is only because he is in Dressrosa Castle. Once he steps out and officially goes to the Northland province, he believes that the daily intelligence can give more, and naturally he will not focus on this. Time slowly passed. For the next 10 days, Thor was completely immersed in preparation. By the way, waiting for the update of daily intelligence. Just like before, the daily intelligence did not give him too many good things in the next 10 days. Only some items worth several or hundreds of gold coins were found. As for the fruit of life, and top geniuses like Ryan did not appear again. In fact, this is also normal. The population of the town under the jurisdiction of the entire Dressrosa Castle is only a few 100,000. It is a miracle that the fruit of life and a genius like Ryan can appear. And miracles cannot always appear. Otherwise, it is not called a miracle. Thor was not disappointed. As he thought, when he arrived at the northern province, that would be the real stage. The resources and opportunities in a completely undeveloped world are unimaginable, and those will have the opportunity to be presented in his daily intelligence. The night passed gradually. With his last day in Dressrosa Castle. Early in the morning, Thor was summoned to the study by his father. Take a look, see if there is anything else you need. If it can be satisfied, I will try my best to satisfy you. A gentle voice sounded, and Count Engel Dressrosa looked at his son. While he was speaking, the butler Charlie handed a list to Thor. Yes. Thor was a little nervous and expectant. He naturally knew that this was his father and the Dressrosa family's funding for a pioneering knight like him. These are the key to his development for a long time in the future, so he is naturally very concerned. After all, even if he has a daily intelligence system, the amount of funding the family can provide is the basis for his rapid development. Eyes converged. Then lines of text came into view. 10,000 gold coins. 50 bottles of low-level life potions. 3 bottles of intermediate life potions. 34 knights, 100 apprentice knights, and 300 reserve knights. 1 set of gold armor, 34 sets of silver armor, 100 sets of bronze armor, and 300 sets of black iron armor. Lines of text appeared, and when Thor saw these words, his breathing became heavy. There is no way, this is too much. Even if it is just a preliminary estimate, its value is more than hundreds of thousands of gold coins. You have to know that the annual fiscal revenue of the entire Dressrosa family territory is probably less than 100,000 gold coins, which is far more than the value of the annual fiscal revenue at this moment. Not to mention the value of 34 knights, 100 apprentice knights and 300 reserve knights. Even without the great knights, this is almost one-tenth of the strength of the Dressrosa family knights. He looked up instantly and looked at his own father with heavy breathing. I said that the young eagle of the Dressrosa family is about to spread its wings. As the patriarch of the Dressrosa family, your father, I should give you a gift. How is it, are you satisfied? Count Engel Dressrosa spoke again with a gentle voice, his expression was calm, and there was not much fluctuation. Even such a fortune is already valuable to him, and it is the same. Thank you, father. I am very satisfied. Thor took a deep breath and spoke with respect. At this moment, he was really sincere. Although he thought that Count Engel Dressrosa would give him a big farewell gift, he did not expect it to be so huge. Such a fortune is enough for him to use as initial startup capital. As long as you are satisfied. Let's go and see your future subordinates. Today, under the witness of the goddess of life, they will become your most loyal knights. Engel Dressrosa smiled and stood up. Yes, father. Thor nodded, and the figure quickly turned sideways and gave up his position. Count Engel Dressrosa took a step, and the two gradually walked out of the castle and came to the parade ground outside. At this moment, 34 knights, 100 apprentice knights, and 300 reserve knights were waiting on the parade ground. When Count Engel Dressrosa and Thor arrived, more than 400 people knelt on the ground in unison. Go up, that is your stage. Count Engel Dressrosa smiled and gestured to his son beside him. Yes, father. Thor nodded, and his heart was also a little surging. The figure stepped forward. And the moment he stepped forward, the young man in the lead directly drew his sword. Swear. A low and solemn voice rose. The next moment, voices rang out over the entire training ground. Along with the voices. The next moment, a golden scroll opened above everyone's head. The power of the contract began to connect continuously. Compared to Ryan's Guardian contract, this is a loyalty contract. Based on the contract book, the binding force is much lower than that of the Guardian contract. However, it is almost impossible for hundreds of people to obey Thor completely from the heart, even if Thor has shown his kindness now. Of course, for now, this is enough. With the completion of the contract, Thor waved his hand and gave away all the armor and weapons given by his father, including 34 of the 50 bottles of low-level life potions. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 11 Departure to the Northern Province. Good. It seems that I don't need to teach you anything anymore. From today on, you will be the spreading eagle of our Dressrosa family. I am waiting in the family for the day when you become a baron. On that day, I will celebrate you in my family. In front of the castle, Engel Dressrosa gave his final instructions to his son. He became more and more satisfied with his son. Life potions were distributed, even he didn't think of it. However, this approach is undoubtedly extremely correct. At this moment, the hearts of more than 400 knights are completely absorbed by their sons. This will undoubtedly make it easier for their sons to get through the most difficult initial period. Yes, father. Thor nodded respectfully, and at this moment his heart couldn't help but surge. Next is a new world, and it will also be his stage. He had been preparing for this day for a whole month, and he was full of expectations. Go ahead, I'm waiting for your good news. Count Engel Dressrosa smiled and spoke. Yes, father. Thor nodded, and this time he did not address his lord again. After the words fell, the figure turned around and pulled the reins, causing the horse to neigh. 400 knights followed behind him. The troops set out in great force. Behind him, Count Engel Dressrosa, Mijiel paused. Until the figure in front gradually disappeared from sight. Let's go, the young eagle will finally fly into the blue sky. With a gentle voice, Count Engel Dressrosa smiled and turned back to the castle. Yes, Lord Earl. I think Master Thor must be an eagle. Mijiel also spoke with a smile. The two figures disappeared. On the other side, Thor led 400 knights to gradually leave Dressrosa Castle and head towards the Northland Province. Dressrosa Castle is located in Frostmoon Province, and Northland Province is above Frostmoon Province. There is no need to cross other provinces, but as an emerging province, Frostmoon Province is also large enough. It would take a month to make the leap. But Thor was not in a hurry about this. After all, his father, Count Engel Dressrosa, had prepared for him not only weapons, equipment, gold coins, but also a large amount of supplies. Not to mention a month, even half a year is enough to support it. As for safety issues, there is no need to worry. At least in Frost Moon Province, there won't be too big a problem. As for setting foot in the Northland Province, with 400 knights, it was not a small force in the entire Northland Province, and it was enough for him to protect himself. It's just that Thor is a little disappointed. Even if he left the range of the Dressrosa family, his daily intelligence did not gain much. There was no way. On the one hand, he was on his way and could not penetrate deep into the sphere of influence of other nobles. On the other hand, although Frost Moon Province is also a new province, it is different from Northland Province in that it has been developed for hundreds of years. It has been developed for a long time, so it is naturally difficult to find leaks. In 1 month, he gained something worth almost 1,000 gold coins. Although quite a few. But it is obviously heavier than the first one, and these are obviously nothing. However, this phenomenon became completely different after entering the Northland Province. 1 month later, it was just the first day of entering the Northland Province. The daily refresh of information made his eyes light up. Ding! The intelligence system has been updated. Do you want to open it? The sound of machinery sounded, just like every day in the past. Open. When the whispering voice spoke, Thor didn't pay much attention at first. And the moment his words fell. Buzz. Daily information has been updated. 1. 50 miles ahead of you, there will be a dispute between 2 pig beasts in 3 days. They are about to break out into a fight. When you arrive in 4 days, you will harvest 2 fresh pig beast corpses. 2. 3 days later, in the river 30 miles ahead, there will be a group of spiny butterfly fish swimming by. If you can catch it, your qualifications can be slightly improved. 3. 7 days later, a mysterious old man will be seriously injured 70 miles ahead. Saving him will bring you unexpected gains, but 30 years later, the future will bring certain crises. 4. 1 day later, 1,000 miles to the right, there is a star moon fruit that is about to mature. A. A5 I 1/4. A. A6 I 1/4. A. A7 I 1/4. A. The rows of golden characters displayed were completely different from the previous situation. The originally careless Thor's eyes were instantly attracted. He thought that today would be the same as usual, with nothing too good. However, just by scanning his eyes, there were several things that made his eyes light up. Then a touch of joy inevitably spread. Really? As his eyes swept over each piece of information, he couldn't hold back his smile any longer. Just like he imagined. After entering the Northland Province, the gifts given by intelligence are undoubtedly different. Even though there were many of them that he could not obtain at present, even the few that he could obtain made his heart beat with excitement. For example, the 2 pig beasts at 3,000 meters, if he remembered correctly, pig beasts were considered to be the top level of magic beasts, and one was worth hundreds of gold coins. More importantly, the meat of pig beasts was enough to increase life force, and it was extremely gentle. After receiving 2 directly, he had all the food for the next trip to Lucerne City, the center of the northern province. Not to mention the thorny butterfly fish in the second intelligence. He did not prepare for that month in vain. He had memories of this kind of fish, which was a magic beast unique to the northern province. Each one was extremely precious and could not be measured by value. If the meat of pig beasts could speed up the gathering of life force, then the meat of thorny butterfly fish could improve the knight's qualifications. Obviously, the latter was much more precious than the former. After all, qualifications always limit how far a knight can go. The value of improving qualifications is immeasurable. In addition, other options also made him excited. Especially the star moon fruit, its value is not lower than that of the butterfly fish, because it is also the main ingredient of the high-level life potion, and its value is only slightly inferior to the life fruit. In the kingdom, it is also enough to trigger a large number of earth knights to fight for it. In the auction within the kingdom, it is even more unsaleable. Even if he just looks at it, Thor feels his Adam's apple rolling. What a pity. With a sigh, Thor could only shake his head in the end. 1 day. 1,000 miles, let alone he is just a little apprentice knight, even the Sky Knight will have to go to bed. When he passes there, he will probably only eat dirt. Chapter 12. The first step of the Pioneer Night. In a small stream that was not very spacious, the entire section was completely blocked at this moment, and the eyes of the official knights were shining at this moment. A moment later, a surprised voice sounded. Sir, I caught it. It's really a butterfly fish. With the surprised voice, Thor, who was originally resting, stood up and walked over. At this moment, in the stream, a knight was catching a strange fish that was about the size of a palm and was light blue. Sir, I also caught 1 inch. And after Thor approached, another knight's surprised voice soon sounded. Sir, sir. The voices rang out one after another, and in a moment, 7 or 8 knights exclaimed. But there were only these 7 or 8 people, and only these few butterfly fish appeared in this stream. But this was enough to surprise people. This is a butterfly fish. Each one can be sold for 5,000 to 10,000 gold coins at the top auctions in the kingdom. More importantly, this thing has a huge effect. Even if it only slightly improves the knight's talent, it is a permanent improvement. Everyone looked at the butterfly fish and couldn't help but feel their throat rolling. And when they saw Thor's eyes, they only admired him. They didn't know where their lord knew that there were butterfly fish here. They only knew that their lord brought them here and told them that there were butterfly fish here, and it turned out that there were. This was the first time for their lord to go to the Northland province. Thinking of this, they couldn't help but be shocked and yearning. Originally, everyone was a little nervous about going to the Northland province, but at this moment, this nervousness disappeared quietly. Of course, Thor didn't pay attention to these at the moment. He waved his hand and asked the knights to deal with these butterfly fish and prepare to eat. He didn't plan to keep the butterfly fish, but to distribute them. On the one hand, only the first butterfly fish is useful. On the other hand, when entering the Northland province, Thor can also feel the anxiety of each knight. The appearance of the butterfly fish can undoubtedly alleviate their anxiety. More importantly, these are all his future team members and they are knights who are trustworthy. It goes without saying that they should be given benefits. Although there are only 7 in total, if they are shared, the probability that each person can enjoy it is just to taste it, but whether or not it is completely different. In fact, it is true. When Thor decided to share the butterfly fish with them, more than 400 knights suddenly cheered. If loyalty and morale can be seen at this moment, the values AA can be seen to be growing rapidly. But even if they can't see it, everyone can clearly feel the difference among them. Thor smiled and tasted his own portion at the same time. The meat of the butterfly fish is very soft and melts in the mouth. The moment he swallowed it, Thor felt a warm current spreading to his limbs and bones, and his mind instantly felt a sense of coolness. The life force in the body is spreading uncontrollably. Thor did not dare to neglect it, and quickly sat cross-legged and practiced the knight's breathing method. Time passed slowly. About half an hour later, Thor's eyes suddenly opened, with a look of surprise. At this moment, his life seed grew again, and he took another step towards the middle stage of the apprentice knight. Given the current situation, when he arrived in Lucerne City, he might be able to break through to the middle stage of the apprentice knight. But this surprise has not spread yet. The next moment, a source of life suddenly bloomed next to him. Thor's surprise stopped abruptly, and his eyes looked to the side, with a twitch at the corner of his mouth. At this moment, Ryan also opened his eyes, and his body was dotted with green light, which was a scene of life source filling the air. And this means that Ryan has officially broken through to the late stage of the apprentice knight. That's right, it's the late stage of the apprentice knight. Before setting off, with the help of the intermediate life potion, he broke through to the novice knight in one fell swoop. On the 10th day of the departure, this person had already reached the middle stage of the novice knight from the early stage of the novice knight. At this moment, in less than 20 days, the other party broke through again, from the middle stage of the novice knight to the late stage. At this speed, when he broke through to the middle stage of the novice knight, the other party might have directly reached the peak of the novice knight. This cultivation speed simply made him speechless. This is the reason why people will die if they compare themselves with people, and goods will be thrown away if they are compared with goods. Thor took a deep breath and shook his head. My lord. Ryan, who had just broken through at this moment, could not help but show a touch of surprise. When he saw Thor's eyes, Ryan hurriedly saluted. Not bad, work hard, and strive to become the peak of the knight when we arrive at the territory. Thor's mind was restrained, and a soft voice sounded. Yes, my lord. Ryan was excited and hurriedly spoke respectfully. At this moment, he had only respect for Thor. If you can see the loyalty, this one is absolutely full. Thor encouraged them a few words. Then he asked everyone to move forward again. On the way, Thor picked up the 2 pig beasts mentioned in the intelligence. This undoubtedly made the knights exclaim again and let everyone have a good meal again. The bitter cold days that were originally expected did not come, but the first day of arriving in the northern province was spent in harvest. This made the more than 400 knights no longer worried about the future, but full of expectations. At this moment, everyone seemed to feel that a beautiful future was waving at them. Expectation, longing, yearning. This moment replaced the previous uneasiness, tension, and confusion about the future. And this is undoubtedly what Thor needs. Building a territory is the beginning from scratch. The difficult situation encountered is unimaginable. And this first level is the firmness of the servant knight's heart. Servant knights are also people. They are not guardian knights under the witness of the goddess of life. They signed a contract and will not betray for life, but they will not betray and will not attach to others. Whether they can mobilize their inner enthusiasm is undoubtedly the first problem that every pioneer knight needs to solve. After consulting a lot of information, Thor naturally understands this. Fortunately, he has daily intelligence, so it is much easier for him to solve it than other pioneer knights. Night gradually fell. The first day of arriving in the northern province passed by and soon came to the second day. Like the first day, they also had a lot of gains on the second day. Although it was not as good as the butterfly fish that could directly improve the knight's qualifications, the gains were not small, and everyone got a share. Chapter 13 Neil Morton's desperate situation. The first day passed in anticipation, and the second day was also the same. The following time was also the same. And time gradually came to the 6th day under this situation. In the 6 days, under the daily intelligence system, everyone undoubtedly gained a lot. Not only in terms of money, but also in terms of cultivation. Among the 100 apprentice knights, there was even one who officially broke through to become a formal knight, which made Thor's 34 formal knights have one more person, reaching 35. And even the other apprentice knights who did not break through, as well as the formal knights, have made significant progress in their cultivation. This is something that was unimaginable when they were in Dressrosa Castle before. But less than 2 months after leaving the Dressrosa family, their lord gave them all this. Such a result makes them full of anticipation for the future all the time. And they are like this, and so is Thor. A butterfly fish slightly improved his talent, and with the gains of the past few days, his knight progress is also very rapid. At this moment, he is getting closer and closer to the middle stage of the apprentice knight. At the current speed, he might be able to break through to the middle stage of the apprentice knight before arriving at Lucerne City, which is faster than originally expected, not to mention compared with the previous departure from Dressrosa Castle. What made him twitch a little was that Ryan was faster, and it might be possible to break through to the peak of the apprentice knight in a few days. It is estimated that before arriving at the territory, he might have already become a formal knight. This talent gap is simply speechless. It is completely not a conceptual existence, worthy of being a sky knight in the future. The night gradually fell. Thor, who had completed the breathing method training, suddenly opened his eyes. The new intelligence system appeared again. Ding! The intelligence system has been updated. Open it. The mechanical voice sounded, just like every day in the past. Open it. The whispering voice spoke. The moment he finished speaking. Buzz. A ripple spread. Daily intelligence updated. 1. A group of Earth dragons will pass by 100 miles ahead of you. 2. 3 days later. 3. Tomorrow, a mysterious old man will be seriously injured 3 miles ahead. Saving him will bring you unexpected gains, but 30 years later, the future will bring certain crises. 4. 1 day later, 1,000 miles to the right, the hell dragon from the underground cave is wreaking havoc. 5. 1,000 miles from Lucerne City, there is a small iron mine guarded by goblins in Fallen Leaf Valley. 6. 3 days later, a group of unicorns will pass by the Rhine River. They will stay for 3 hours and then leave. Closing square bracket. 7. 7 days later. Like the others, Thor quickly noticed the harvest, but he didn't know if it was because he was approaching Lucerne City, the harvest was obviously less. Of course, no matter how less, it was still much more than when he was in Frostmoon Province. Thor's eyes swept through them one by one, and soon fixed on two of them. However, after writing down the two items, his eyes could not help but focus on the one that had always appeared in the intelligence. Tomorrow. Muttering to himself, Thor hesitated a little, and his eyes were fixed on the third item. The seriously injured old man will bring you unexpected gains, but 30 years later, the future will bring certain crises. But the time is about to come, and he can't help but hesitate. Mysterious, seriously injured, unexpected, disaster. Even if you think with your toes, you know that the old man is very important. But the possible disaster made him wonder whether to save or not. If he doesn't save, he may really miss a major opportunity. If he saves, once there is a real disaster, he may not be able to deal with it with his current small arms and legs. Thoughts flowed. Thor glanced at Ryan next to him, then looked at the sign of 30 years later, pondered for a moment, and finally made a decision. The night gradually passed. The blood moon fell, and a new day came with the dawn. Everyone set off again. At this moment, compared with the original trajectory, there are obvious changes. The target is exactly the place of the mysterious old man in the intelligence. In the end, Thor decided to save this old man. The reason is very simple, that is, he has a golden finger. Once there is a problem, the golden finger will prompt, and if it is really impossible to deal with it, just split it again. And it is unknown how long the future will be. It may be a disaster for him now, but it may not be a disaster for him in the future. Thor is still very confident about this. In comparison, the harvest now is the most important. Everyone walked slowly again. The distance of 3 miles passed quickly. Gradually began to approach the destination. At the same time, in the distance, a figure was staggering at this moment. Bang! There was a slight sound, and then his body fell directly to the ground. Damn Hagel! Neil Morton's heart sank, and at this moment he could clearly feel that the poison was spreading all over his body. If these toxins were in his prime, they would not be a big deal. After all, the life force of a Sky Knight is enough to dispel everything. However, that was his prime. At this moment, his life seed is almost exhausted and his life force is almost exhausted. These toxins are undoubtedly extremely deadly. Is he going to die like this? I really can't accept it, Sophia, forgive me. Neil Morton muttered to himself, with a bitter smile on his face. He was a dignified Sky Knight of the Empire, and he was likely to break through the existence of the Holy Knight in the future, but he was designed to end up like this. In the bitter smile, his heart was also full of reluctance. However, reluctance was useless. He could feel that the toxins had spread to his heart and lungs. In less than 20 breaths, he would die completely, and then even the gods could not save him. At this moment, unless he could return to the Empire and receive the best priest treatment, he would have a chance to recover. But this was impossible. This was a wild land far away from the Empire. His consciousness gradually became drowsy, and his expression was full of reluctance. But no matter how unwilling he was, his consciousness was only getting more and more drowsy at this moment. Until the moment before his consciousness almost completely dissipated. Figures seemed to appear in the distance. The last thought of his consciousness was that he might be finished. Because the only ones who could appear here were probably the hunting troops of the temple. But there was only this one thought. The poison not only spread to his heart and lungs, but also to his brain. His consciousness was completely silent. Chapter 14 Arriving at Lucerne City. Sir, there is someone ahead. A cry of surprise sounded, and then the entire knights prepared for battle. Hearing the words of the knight and the figure lying on the ground ahead, his heart moved, and he instantly realized that the person ahead should be the seriously injured mysterious old man. Don't be nervous, go and see what happened there. Thor waved his hand and spoke solemnly. Yes. A knight nodded, then waved his hand, and several people quickly stepped forward. Soon, these people returned. Sir, the person ahead seems to be poisoned and his life is in danger. A respectful voice spoke and reported to Thor. Bring him here. Thor pondered for a moment, and then gave an order to the knight commander next to him. Yes. Steve nodded, and then quickly gathered people to move forward. Soon the old man was brought over by several knights. And Thor finally saw the appearance of this mysterious old man clearly. The old man was wearing dark armor, his hair had long been gray, his face was haggard, and a hint of brown almost spread over his face. Seeing this scene, Thor's brows could not help but gather. It was obvious that this man was probably poisoned. It was really hard to say whether he could be saved. Thor was slightly puzzled, but still looked at Ryan next to him. Ryan. He spoke. Sir. Ryan responded respectfully. Put him in the carriage at the back, and give him the fruit I got a few days ago. Thor spoke, and at this moment he had made a decision. He even took out an equally precious item he had recently obtained. That was a sacred fruit he harvested in the jungle 3 days ago. Although its value is not as good as the fruit of life, it is almost the same as the star moon fruit. The only difference is that there are usually countless star moon fruits on a tree, but there is only one sacred fruit. It can only be born in trees that contain life force for more than 1,000 years. Each fruit contains a large amount of life source power. It is not only the main material of intermediate life potions, but also the auxiliary material of high-level life potions. Under normal circumstances, as long as the hands and feet are not broken, a sacred fruit can be cured. But the old Mana's situation is indeed not optimistic at the moment, and Thor is not sure whether the sacred fruit can be taken. However, since he has chosen to save the old man, Thor is also ready to try. Anyway, he can afford to lose a sacred fruit, so there is no need to worry too much. Yes. Ryan nodded. There was no hesitation at all. Go and make arrangements quickly. I hope he doesn't die. Otherwise, I will be in vain. Thor muttered to himself, and after taking another look, he immediately retracted his sight. That was all he could do. As for using high-level life potions, not to mention that he didn't have them, even if he did, he probably wouldn't take a gamble. After all, it was still unknown how many unexpected surprises the old man in front of him could bring. The effects of high-level potions were unimaginable even for him now. Naturally, it was impossible to use them casually. This was an episode. Everyone set off again. At this moment, they were getting closer and closer to Lucerne City, the municipal district of the northern province. At the current speed, they could arrive in 10 days at most. In response, Thor chose to speed up. No more effort was made to look for them. After all, as they got closer to Lucerne City, the harvest around them became significantly lower. It was no longer attractive enough. And in this case, 10 days journey, but 7 days, Lucerne City was already in sight. 7 days. Everyone was on their way. Fortunately, there were at least reserve nights, and there was no fatigue. As for the reduction in harvest, no one cared. After all, everyone knows that it is impossible to always have gains. Everything before is enough to surprise people. And Thor didn't care too much. Everything before can prove the great role of the daily intelligence system in the northern province. Now he is not in the pioneering land. If he goes to the pioneering land, this gain will only be greater. Now it is not even the beginning, so naturally he doesn't need to care. The only thing that makes him worry is the mysterious old man. 7 days have passed, and the old man's breath is still weak, and there is no sign of awakening. If he can't still feel the fluctuation of the source of life, Thor would doubt whether the old man has died. There is no way. That toxin, even if just feeling it, makes Thor feel numb on his scalp. He doubts that even a formal knight may not be able to resist it. No, not afraid. But certain. In this case, whether he can wake up is undoubtedly a bit more timid at this moment. Once he can't wake up, his investment and adventure will undoubtedly be in vain. Fortunately, the intelligence in the past few days did not indicate any danger. Otherwise, he would have to consider abandoning the old man. After all, it was not worth it no matter how you looked at it. However, since there was no warning of danger and the old man was not dead at the moment, Thor still considered for a moment and stayed. After all, according to the tradition of the previous life, he had already saved him. And on the 8th day, everyone can already see the appearance of going to Lucerne City. Ryan's breath suddenly shook, and the next moment the green light spread to his entire surroundings. At the same time, waves of life force swept up, and the breath was rising rapidly. Breakthrough. Thor opened his eyes and looked at Ryan not far away. The corners of his mouth couldn't help twitching again. At this moment, he just felt the existence of the middle stage of the apprentice knight. If he wanted to break through, he estimated that it would take another day. As a result, now it's good. Ryan broke through to the peak of the apprentice knight. If it was just a guess before, then at this moment he was almost certain that Ryan would be able to break through to the official knight before going to the territory. Official knight, that's a formal knight. At his current training speed, let's see if there is hope in 10 years. This is still the enhanced talent. Before, it was estimated that it would take decades. Shaking his head, Thor couldn't help but sigh. At this moment, everyone in the Knights was alarmed. Even Steve, the Knight commander, couldn't help but look at Ryan in shock. Along the way, although he had enough knowledge of Ryan's talent, he was still deeply shocked by his breakthroughs. He knew that Ryan had practiced the Knight training method, and it had only been less than 3 months since he reached it. Think about yourself. It seemed that he had just mastered the correct Knight breathing method in 3 months, let alone the peak of the Apprentice Knight, and he had not even seen the door of the Apprentice Knight. Chapter 15 Choosing to Expand Territory. The Northland Province was opened 20 years ago. 20 years later, the entire Northland Province is still a wild scene. Only Lucerne City, the provincial municipal center, has traces of civilization. But it's just a trace. Compared to Frost Moon Province, Lucerne City still looked chaotic, barbaric, and dirty under the rule of nobles everywhere. That's right, it's dirty. There are piles of feces everywhere on the road, and a stench permeates the surroundings. If Frost Moon Province can clearly see the beautiful side of a kingdom, then Lucerne City is undoubtedly the last dilapidated side of the entire kingdom, with stinking water flowing across it. The free people on the streets were as sallow and skinny as the serfs of Frost Moon Province. It was obvious that even as free people, their lives were extremely difficult here. There is no way, as the newest province of the kingdom, there is no protection of the kingdom's laws, and the lords of various places are the absolute masters here. Repression, exploitation, and chaos are the main themes here. Under this situation, even though Lucerne City is the municipal center, urban life is naturally extremely difficult. It is already the 9th day since Thor and others entered the Northland province. After a total of 40 days of travel, they finally crossed the long road and arrived at Lucerne City. Just as soon as they entered Lucerne City, the entire team couldn't help but feel a little dull. Even Ren is like this. His life was already extremely difficult, but it seemed to be much better than the free people here. He could clearly detect that the eyes of the people here seemed to have lost their luster. As their group arrived, the figures only gave in numbly. Grown-ups. Ren spoke in a low voice, with a dull look on his childish face. Let's go to the civic center to register first. Thor was also silent. Even though he knew something about the entire Northland province in books, the intuitive impact at this moment still left him speechless. But this is obviously beyond his control. Don't talk about him. Even if his father comes, he is not qualified to take care of the affairs of the Northland province. There is a marquis sitting here. Yes. Ren nodded. After Thor arranged for his knights to be stationed, he took Ren and Steve towards the center of Lucerne City. Lucerne City is not big, and the buildings in the municipal center are also very obvious. Among the low-rise bungalows, the municipal center building is entirely built of bluestone, with a gorgeous and solemn look. When the 3 people approached, he was soon stopped by 2 guarding knights. You two, I am Turdressrosa, here to register as a pioneer knight. Thor spoke and then showed his family's emblem. In order to avoid any trouble, Thor did not wear it along the way, but when he arrived in Lucerne City, he still needed to show his identity. The emblem of the eagle is extremely eye-catching under the sun. The 2 knights couldn't help but be startled, and quickly made a knightly salute to Thor. Dear Knight Thor Dressrosa, forgive my offense, please come in. A knight spoke respectfully, feeling a little uneasy in his heart. The Dressrosa family had a very famous reputation throughout the kingdom, and he did not dare to offend them. Good work. Thor nodded. You are serious, my lord, please come this way. The knight spoke quickly, and then led the 3 people into the municipal center. The entire municipal center is extremely huge. The area is almost as large as Dressrosa Castle. In the hall, figures came and went. There are staff members and there is also a famous knight. When Thor approached, the family crest on his chest instantly attracted the attention of many people. Some people even paused and performed knightly salutes to Thor. Although the Dressrosa family is only a count, the reputation of the Dressrosa family is already comparable to that of some marquee families. Even a pioneer knight of the Dressrosa family is enough for them to take it seriously. Thor returned the favor one by one. Then, led by the knight, they came to a window. Hello, respected knight of Dressrosa, this Northland province has not yet developed a target, you can choose one to register. In front of the window, a blonde girl spoke cautiously, full of humility. Thank you. Thor nodded, and then took the map handed over by the blonde girl. As a pioneer knight, it is naturally impossible to develop casually. The kingdom has complete rules. Anyone who becomes a pioneer knight needs to go to Lucerne City to register and choose the goal of their own pioneering. Generally, this is also the core of the future territory. Only when the selected place is completely developed can the mission of the pioneer knight be completed. Thor is naturally very familiar with this. He reached out and took the map, his eyes involuntarily focusing on it. The map is huge and much clearer than expected. Green circles and red circles appeared throughout the Northland province. The red circle means that it has been selected, while the green circle means that it has not been selected. Looking at it at this moment, the entire eastern and southern part of the Northland province has been almost occupied by red circles. Only a large number of circles remain in the west and north. This is also normal. Although there are only a few dozen people who have been granted titles in the entire northern province, this does not represent the number of pioneer knights. Even though the proportion of pioneer knights who have died is extremely high, they are still increasing with the continuous replenishment. The entire northern province is not to mention many. As far as Thor knows, the number of pioneer knights is probably no less than 1,000. There is no way. The entire northern province is too big. In the previous life, it was almost twice the size of the northern frontier. Such a vast territory cannot be occupied by dozens or hundreds of people. Even now, thousands of people have only developed less than 1/10 of it. Of course, these have nothing to do with Thor. Information flows in his mind, and the intelligence of the past few days is constantly intertwined, and his eyes scan the green circles on the map. Compared with others, who can only choose randomly, he is different. He has an intelligence system, especially in the past few days of special sorting, he has a certain reference direction. Now all he needs to do is to select. Time slowly passes. The blonde girl was waiting, not daring to rush. It was not until Thor had scanned all the red circles that he made a decision. Let's go to the main valley. Thor spoke softly, and then handed the map to the blonde girl. Yes, respected Knight Dressrosa, I will do it for you right away. The blonde girl nodded quickly, and then took action quickly. Chapter 16 Future Territory Construction Plan. Knight Dressrosa, I have registered it for you. In the next 20 years, as long as you are here, the main valley will always belong to your territory. After 20 years, the kingdom will review your territory. If it is a qualified kingdom, you will be awarded a title. Of course, you can also apply in advance, as long as you meet the conditions. The blonde girl handed over a parchment roll respectfully. As the territory chosen by the initial knights to open up, naturally there will be no cumbersome procedures. This parchment is the contract. Thank you. Thor expressed his thanks and took the parchment. The main river valley was the result of his continuous sifting through daily intelligence. On the one hand, the scope of the main river valley is large enough. Although there are 3 noble lords and more than a dozen pioneer lords on the left, the range extending to the north is extremely empty. Under the impact of the main river, formations were formed on it. An extremely large bay was created, with flat terrain and good soil, making it extremely suitable for large-scale farming. The only problem was that there would be flooding, but this was not a problem for Thor, the traveler. Of course, the more important reason for choosing this place is that according to daily intelligence, there are not only star and moon fruits there, but also an extremely rich iron mine among the goblin tribe in the east. Needless to say, Changge fruit, even the iron ore was enough to make the earl's heart flutter, let alone him. Under these various conditions, his choice goes without saying. You are serious. Looking forward to your coming again. The blonde girl spoke quickly. Thor smiled and nodded. Then he took Ren and Steve out of the civic center. On the way, a famous knight once again saluted Thor. Thor returned the favor one by one. After walking out of the civic center, they quickly arrived at the place where the knights were stationed. Grown-ups. Grown-ups. Thor returned, and a famous knight quickly saluted. Thor waved his hand. Then he walked into the camp. The knights also began to prepare meals. After eating his first meal in Lucerne City, Thor immediately fell into deep thought. The registration of the Pioneer Knight has been completed. At this point, he can be regarded as a Pioneer Knight in the true sense. He is an existence recognized by the laws of the kingdom. In the next 20 years, he will enjoy certain rights of the nobility. As long as he can complete the development of the territory within 20 years and pass the review of the kingdom, then he can become a true baron of the kingdom. And this also means that his career as a lord is about to come. How to develop the territory is something he will need to consider for a long time to come. For this, he had already made a lot of preparations in Dressrosa Castle. But when he finally reached this moment, he was still ready to sort it out. He is also preparing to stay in Lucerne City for a day to see if the daily intelligence system can give him more surprises. Night gradually fell. Naturally, there is no place for them to live in Lucerne City. However, it can still be arranged by spending a certain amount of gold coins. Especially since Thor is a descendant of the Dressrosa family, it is even simpler. It's just that this environment cannot be compared with Dressrosa Castle. But this has no impact, it is much better than the wild. Time passes slowly. Soon it was early morning. With Thor's slight expectation, the daily intelligence system was refreshed again. Buzz. Daily information has been updated. 1. 150 miles ahead of you, a group of Earth dragons will pass by. A2. 3 days later, A3 I 1/4 tomorrow, A4. 1 day later, 1,000 miles to the right, an ethereal dragon has left its mother's nest. After leaving, it failed to return. It contained the treasures it collected in one of its offspring. A5. 1,000 miles away from Lucerne City, there is a large iron mine guarded by goblins on the west side of the main river valley. 6. Tomorrow, a group of unicorns will pass by the Rhine River and will stay for 3 hours before leaving. A7. 2 days later, a group of slaves will be sold in the slave market of Lucerne City. The third batch of female slaves, the third from the left, is a half-elf girl. She has a rare mage talent and is extremely talented. The text appeared, and Thor scanned the lists one by one until he reached the 7th item, and his eyes couldn't help but light up. There was a hint of surprise in his expression. Not a half-elf. For some nobles, elf girls and half-elf girls are undoubtedly enough to give them a rush of adrenaline, but Thor is not. Or to be more precise, compared to these, he cares more about strength and the improvement of territory, otherwise he would not choose to become a pioneer knight. What surprised him was that this half-elf girl actually possessed the extremely rare talent of a mage, and her talent was extremely high. In the kingdom, or in this continent, knights are the mainstream. However, this does not mean that there is only one type of practice, knights. Witches and mages are all practicing methods. It is also a supernatural power. It's just that it's extremely rare compared to knights, mages, and witches. Especially in the kingdom, mages are so rare that they are almost invisible. But every mage is an extremely important resource for the nobles and the entire kingdom. Because whether it is magic potion or life potion, only mages can configure it. In this case, mages naturally become extremely precious. Thor never thought that he would meet a person with extremely high mage talent in Lucerne City. Surprise, this moment is really a surprise. After all, as long as he can take down this half-elf girl and subdue her, his future development will be unimaginable. Mage, that is a mage. If a mage can be born in his territory. Such a result, even if just thinking about it, makes Thor excited. 2 days. Whispered, and then Thor made a decision. It's just 2 days, at most he will go to the territory at 1 o'clock in the evening. There is no need to rush. With the decision, Thor began to wait in Lucerne City. 2 days passed quickly. Thor also experienced the life in Lucerne City. To be honest, Lucerne City is indeed far behind Frostmoon Province. This little bit is not only about the free people's demeanor, but also about their living conditions. It can be felt that the materials in Lucerne City are not too sufficient. After 20 years of development, it is obvious that the Marquis may not care much. But this is also normal. A Marquis, thrown into this place, I am afraid that no one will care much. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 17 Purchase of Serfs. On the right side of the Civic Center, there is a building that is only a few minutes smaller. Compared to the splendor of the Civic Center, this building is undoubtedly much simpler. However, there are more people here, and a large number of knights are filling it. Many of them are wearing the badges of nobles. Even Thor, a member of the Dressrosa family, does not seem to be so eye-catching here. Of course, it's just not that eye-catching. It doesn't mean no one is paying attention. As Thor and the other three stepped in, they were quickly greeted by attendants. Welcome, noble knight, what do you need? The attendant spoke with a respectful voice, not daring to show any signs of neglect. I heard that you have all kinds of slaves here. I need to buy a group of serfs. Thor spoke in a gentle voice, not looking for the half-elf girl in a hurry, but talking about another thing. That is to buy serfs. The construction of the territory requires more than just knights. The knights only ensure their own safety and sufficient force to develop. A large number of serfs were also needed. Construction is naturally needed, and construction is impossible without serfs. That's natural. We have the largest slave market in the entire Northland province. The serfs we have are definitely the strongest and can definitely meet your needs. You come with me. The attendant smiled and then led Thor forward. Thor nodded, then led Ren and Steve to follow. Soon, under the leadership of the attendant, the three of them arrived in the basement. The magic crystal lights up. Soon, figures bound by ropes in the iron cages came into view. Each one has a thin figure, a sallow complexion, and even duller eyes. Each one's face is full of numbness, which is obviously not the same thing as the strong one mentioned by the attendant. But Thor didn't pay too much attention. Just listen to what the slave traders say. The free people in Lucerne City are like that, how can the slaves be so good? As long as it's almost there. Dear sir, our serfs here are given 10 silver coins each, and serfs here are given 1 silver coin each. I wonder how many you need. The attendant was not embarrassed at all, and spoke respectfully again, while motioning to the side. Thor couldn't help but sigh after listening to the attendant's words. Even though he had expected it, he was still a little shocked by the price. In Frost Moon Province, the price of a serf was only about 1 silver coin, but the price of a serf here actually reached 10 times the price. Although there are also ones with the same price. But when he saw the serf worth 1 silver coin over there, Thor couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. If the slaves here are barely presentable, the slaves on the other side are completely different. They are all skinny, and many are missing arms and legs. Thor couldn't help but shake his head. That's all. I need 500 people. Thor pondered for a moment, and then said his numerical value. With more than 400 knights, he could theoretically control even thousands of serfs. However, you have to consider your own gold coins and the fact that your territory has not yet been developed. Needless to say, gold coins. Although his father has provided a lot of support and gained a lot along the way, he only has more than 10,000 gold coins in his hands. These gold coins are many, but they are not so much for the development of the territory. He also needs to consider the subsequent development, but there is no way to spend a lot of gold coins to buy serfs. As for the territory, it goes without saying. Today's territory is still in a wilderness. If a large number of people enter, survival will be a problem. These are all things to consider. But even so, such a big deal still made the attendant instantly excited. Dear sir, I will help you handle it immediately. 500 serfs, a total of 5,000 silver coins, a total of 50 gold coins. The attendant's expression became more and more respectful. 50 gold coins is already a big deal, and his position may even be promoted, which is naturally enough to surprise him. By the way, besides these serfs, do you have any other slaves here? Thor seemed to have thought of something, and asked casually. Other slaves. The attendant was a little confused, but soon his eyes lit up and he understood what was going on. Of course, we have a group of good female slaves here today. Do you want to take a look? The attendant spoke with a smile. Slave girl. Let's see. Thor pretended to ponder, then nodded in agreement. Please wait. The attendant spoke quickly, and the figure left in a hurry. And Thor also began to wait in anticipation. After a while, the attendant came in again. At this moment, a whole new group of slaves came behind him. Compared to the previous slaves, these slaves are undoubtedly much neater. All of them are ragged, which is heart-pounding to see. Gudong. Behind him, Ren couldn't help but swallowed. Thor glanced at it and didn't pay too much attention. He was joking, he had never seen anything in his previous life. The slave girl in front of me was like that. Not to mention that these are not his goals. Shall we change a batch? Thor's calm voice spoke. Yes. The attendant nodded quickly and quickly called for the personnel to change. Soon a new batch was delivered. Dear Your Excellency, this batch is of the highest quality. Many of them are even selected from within the kingdom, and the prices are extremely affordable. The attendant spoke respectfully. Next batch. Thor glanced at it casually, shook his head, and spoke again. The attendant can only call for replacement again. This time, after waiting for a while, a new batch arrived. And compared to the first batch, which had 40 or 50 people in it, the third batch that appeared at this moment only had about 20 people. Thor's eyes swept across and quickly settled on the third girl on the right. It was a girl wearing gray cloth. Her face was extremely ordinary and she did not stand out among the entire crowd. When Thor looked over, the girl subconsciously lowered her head like the other slave girls. Dear sir, this is the last batch. If you are still not satisfied, a group of orc female slaves will arrive in 7 days. The attendant spoke softly, with a hint of nervousness. The price of female slaves was undoubtedly much higher than that of male slaves, but the two batches in front of him failed to impress Thor, and he didn't hold out much hope. That's it. And this. In addition, the first batch is the 5th and 7th on the right side of the first row, the second row is the 3rd, 1st, and 9th on the right, and the second batch is the 3rd and 6th on the left in the first row, the 12th. How much in total? Amidst his anxiety, Thor suddenly spoke. Monetary system. 10 iron coins are equal to 1 copper coin, 100 copper coins are equal to 1 silver coin, and 100 silver coins are equal to 1 gold coin. Chapter 18 Half-Elf Girl Anna Karenina. Hello, Your Excellency, you have spent a total of 120 gold coins. Since you have spent more than 100 gold coins, you will become a distinguished guest of our Habsburg Chamber of Commerce. Please keep this and show it next time. Enjoy a 10% discount. The attendant's voice spoke. His expression became more respectful. 100 gold coins, this was a big customer, and he didn't dare to neglect it at all. Thank you. Thor nodded, and then left this place with Ren and others. As for the serfs and female slaves, the knights will take over next. After all, these were hundreds of people, and there was no way the 3 of them could take them away. As for why it cost more than 100 gold coins, it was because the 20 female slaves he selected were worth more. The ones he selected were the most beautiful among the 3 batches of female slaves. The most expensive female slave among them is worth as much as 5 gold coins. Even the other female slaves are worth at least 50 silver coins, such as the half-elf girl. After all, compared to other female slaves, that elf girl was too ordinary. She still had wounds on her body, so her value was naturally greatly reduced. But Thor didn't pay too much attention to this. The half-elf girl's talent as a mage was worth more than anything else. It's not something that can be compared with appearance. Even if he hadn't considered reaching the territory, he would need some people to serve him, and besides being good-looking and eye-catching, he would have no intention of purchasing other female slaves. His original target was only that half-elf female slave. The figure returned to the station. Soon, Steve and Ren brought back the serfs and female slaves with some knights from the knights. But even after leaving the slave farm, most slaves are blind-eyed. The female slave is slightly better, but only slightly better. But he didn't notice that among the 20 female slaves, there was a female slave with an extremely ordinary face, with light shining in her eyes. No, I have to find a way to escape. But the slave contract is still in that guy's hands, what should we do? In Anna's little head, thoughts were constantly flowing. She couldn't help but feel anxious at this moment. In an accident, she was accidentally caught by a slave. In order to avoid being discovered, he used magic to cover her appearance, but this kind of covering can only last for 7 days. After 7 days, it will be automatically lifted. By then, she will be half an elf. Once the identity is exposed, the consequences are unimaginable. But escaping from a slave farm was almost impossible. During this period of time, she had been hoping that someone would buy her out so that she could escape. However, I finally waited for the opportunity. The result made Anna dumbfounded. Because the person who bought her actually brought hundreds of knights with him. Escape. This is just a joke. But if she doesn't run away, her magic can only last 3 days at most. It will definitely be lifted in 3 days, and it will be impossible to hide her half-elf identity by then. Thinking about the special habits of those nobles, Anna couldn't help but tremble. She didn't want that to happen to her. However, she was in panic. A figure walked in. Sophia. Alice. Karen. Ren spoke. Anna was shocked and quickly stood up with the other 2 girls. My lord, I need the services of the 3 of you, come with me. Ren spoke without turning his eyes. Yes. The other 2 people couldn't help but look happy, but Anna couldn't help but widen her eyes, and even subconsciously wanted to cast a magic to see if her disguise had failed. But it was obvious that he could no longer think too much. Ren led the way and took the 3 of them to where Thor was. Grown-ups. Ren spoke respectfully. Let them in. Thor spoke. Yes. Ren nodded, and then motioned for the 3 of them to walk in. Anna walked into the room nervously and apprehensively, while the other 2 walked into the room with happy expressions. Owner. The figure walked in, and the 2 of them quickly greeted each other. Owner. Anna was a little flustered, but she quickly spoke the same way. Get up. After today, you will be my personal maid. Thor spoke, glanced at Anna, and then spoke gently. Yes, master. The 3 people responded quickly, and the other 2 became more and more happy. Although there is only one word difference between a maid and a female slave, the treatment is completely different. A female slave is just a plaything, but a maid is different. And being able to become the maid of such a big shot is even a very good future for them. As for Anna's originally anxious heart, she couldn't help but feel bright. She seemed to have discovered how to get the slave contract now. Personal maid. This is a personal maid. As long as some time passes, she might really be able to do something about it. As for the shielding magic, now that she has become the personal maid of the noble in front of her, it is not a problem to obtain some materials for shielding magic. At worst it will take a little longer. Serve me to wash up. By the way, Alice, prepare the bathtub, I need a bath today. Thor spoke, and then seemed to think of something, speaking in a gentle voice, and then looking at Anna. Ah. Hearing Thor's words, Anna subconsciously did not react. What? Is there a problem? Thor spoke with a smile. At this moment, he had some understanding of half-elves. He knew that half-elves generally had extremely beautiful faces. The face of the half-elf in front of him was extremely ordinary, so there was only one possibility that the other party used concealment magic. Thor also knew something about this magic, and at this moment he couldn't help but want to tease it. No problem. Anna's face suddenly turned red, and she lowered her head and spoke quickly. No, then come on. After Thor finished speaking, he walked towards the bathroom. Anna's cheeks were red, and her body followed Thor with difficulty. Feeling the envious eyes of the other 2, Anna felt that her face was burning. In the bathroom, the heavy armor was taken off, revealing the bronze and strong skin, making the blush on the face of the girl who had never experienced anything almost spread to her neck, and the hands holding the towel were shaking. Thor ignored these. His thoughts were flowing. He was thinking about how to subdue the girl in front of him. Unlike the guardian knight, although the girl in front of him was his slave, it did not mean that she had surrendered to him. It was not so easy to subdue her. As for taking her by force, it was obviously not advisable. On the one hand, it was difficult for him, a traverser, to accept such a thing, and on the other hand, the consequences of doing so were too great. He needed a better way. Chapter 19 Heading to the territory. Wow. The water was flowing, and the girl's movements were extremely unfamiliar. Her trembling hands were just brushing gently, and the blush on her cheeks dyed her neck. In the barrel, the 18-year-old boy was deep in thought. Thoughts passed through me. It wasn't until a moment later that a smile appeared on the young man's face. At this moment he already had an idea. Just kidding, a modern man. For a medieval girl to do this, it would be a joke. There are already countless thoughts in my mind at this moment. After looking at it, the girl couldn't bear it any longer, and Thor chuckled. All right. You can go out. Thor spoke. Ah. The sudden words made the girl stunned for a moment, and she spoke subconsciously. Crash. The water moved, and Thor suddenly stood up. Ah. The girl exclaimed and ran out the next moment. Sophia, Karen, come in. After speaking, the other two maids quickly walked in. After being served by the two men and dressed, Thor walked out. But looking at Thor walking out at this moment, Anna still couldn't help but blush, and she didn't dare to look at Thor. Thor smiled and ignored it. Instead, he came directly to the study. If nothing unexpected happens, he will prepare to go to the territory tomorrow, and he still needs to plan carefully today. At the same time, I also want to see if the daily intelligence in the early morning can have more information refreshed. Night gradually comes. In the study, Thor was preparing for the next steps. There were 3 maids waiting nearby. Anna looked at Thor from the corner of her eye from time to time. She kept thinking in her heart, and it wasn't until a moment later that she calmed down. But her face still couldn't help but have a blush, and her mind couldn't help but think of the previous scene, that strong body, that bronze skin, and the masculine aura that hid her face. As she thought about it, the blush on her face that had just faded came back again. Anna, you can't do this. You still want to run away. Yes, Anna, you still want to run away. I was cheering myself up in my heart. The girl's mood was involuntarily disturbed. It's just that this ripple was not noticed even by herself. Of course Thor didn't know this at the moment. At this moment, as time passed, it finally came to early morning again. The daily information system was also refreshed again as scheduled. Buzz. A ripple spread, and the next moment, lines of text appeared in his eyes. His eyes swept over them one by one. After reading all the content, Thor returned to the room and fell into a deep sleep. Night gradually passed. A new day has arrived. Early in the morning, Thor ordered Steve to go buy supplies. The construction of a territory requires not only people, but also seeds, agricultural tools, food, and all kinds of things. However, it is obvious that in the entire Northland province, the price of slaves and other materials is generally much higher. Even this gap can be said to be too big. The price of slaves is almost 10 times different, and the price of materials is almost 3 times more. To be honest, if it were not allowed by the laws of the kingdom, Thor would have wanted to return to Frosty Moon province to buy it and then bring it over. Unfortunately, I can only think about it. Count Engeldressrosa did not choose to do this, which meant that it was almost impossible to do so. With such prices, he could only hold his nose and admit it. And dusk gradually fell. A large group of people also set off. Target Main Valley. At this moment, compared to the scene when arriving in Lucerne City, it is undoubtedly twice the size. With the addition of 500 serfs, the number of men and horses was close to 1,000. With a large amount of supplies accompanying them, the entire team spread almost 1,000 meters. It can be said to be extremely eye-catching. But with hundreds of fully armed knights, no one dared to have any thoughts. The journey was extremely peaceful. Even if they encountered some ferocious beasts, they would quickly recede after feeling the presence of everyone. The only pig beast that rushed up was quickly dispatched by the knights. In this way, everyone walked for almost 10 days and finally arrived at their destination. The main river valley faces the northernmost part of the Northland province. Compared with the cold in the north, the climate here is extremely suitable due to the impact of the main river. The continuous impact of the main river makes the soil here fertile and covered with water plants. The morning sun was shining, and the breeze was gently blowing on everyone's cheeks, making people feel extremely comfortable. When everyone arrived, looking at this vast plain, Thor's face couldn't help but show a trace of satisfaction. If such a huge plain could be completely developed, it would even be enough to provide the living needs of hundreds of thousands of people. It can be said to be an excellent place. Thor was still a little nervous at first. After all, it was just a rough map, and no one knew what it looked like. It seems that the choice is undoubtedly the right one. Steve. Thor's words spoke. Grown-ups. Steve stepped forward quickly. Gather all the serfs together. Thor spoke, the thought in his heart becoming more and more certain at this moment. Yes. Steve nodded and quickly went down to deal with it. Walk. Ren, let's take a walk here. After giving instructions to Steve, Thor called out to Ren and started walking towards the entire main river valley. Yes. Ren nodded quickly, and at this moment, this person's aura was that of an official knight. Just as he had expected. Just yesterday, the day before arriving in Main Valley, Ren officially broke through to become an official knight. His talent is so high that it is almost astonishing. But Thor is already used to it now. Anyway, the stronger Ren is, the greater the benefit will be to him. The sun was shining and the two of them were walking in the river valley. It took almost an hour for Thor to thoroughly inspect the valley. The situation was even better than he imagined. He doesn't even need to build water infrastructure right now. Because the area where the river valley may be impacted is only close to the main river, and there are large plains outside that will not be impacted by the water flow, which is enough to serve as a place for his initial development. Moreover, the soil is dark brown and its fertility is obviously not low. It can be expected that even if it is just preliminary farming, there will be a good harvest in the coming year. Grown-ups. The serfs have gathered. While thinking, Steve stepped forward and spoke in a respectful voice. Okay, let them start, and surround this area first. Thor nodded and then gestured to the surrounding area. Yes. Steve nodded quickly. Chapter 20 Territory Construction. Under Thor's command, the serfs began to move quickly. During the serfs' action, Thor also summoned the knights. More than 400 members of the knights, this is also a large labor force, Thor will not abandon it. For other nobles, the knights only need to be used as a force, but for Thor, a group of beings with extraordinary powers, it is a waste not to use them for construction. After all, the speed of construction of the knights with 400 people with extraordinary powers is probably incomparable to tens of thousands of slaves. As for how to mobilize them, Thor has already had an idea. The knights gathered. When Thor's plan came, everyone was shocked. Even Steve was no exception. My lord, are you telling the truth? Steve was in disbelief, his voice was trembling. What did he hear? His lord actually said that he would teach him the fierce eagle breathing method, and even give other formal knights the opportunity to practice. At this moment, Steve even felt that he was hallucinating. In this world, knights are extraordinary powers, and knight breathing is undoubtedly the key to step into the extraordinary road. This key has both good and bad. Although the fiery eagle breathing is not as good as the eagle breathing, it is also a first-class breathing method. Although it has not been able to break through to the Sky Knight, it has a high probability of breaking through to the Earth Knight. That is the Earth Knight. Under the Sky Knight, the top existence in the kingdom. At this moment, Steve only felt his lips extremely dry. Of course it's true. Steve, I have spread my wings, so you who follow me also need to have a broader future. Knights, great knights, no, this is not enough, I hope you can all become existences that gallop across the earth and soar into the sky. How about, let's pursue a broader future together. A gentle voice spoke, and Thor's expression was extremely serious. He was naturally not joking. For other people, even other families, a high-level knight breathing method is tantamount to a treasure. It will not be leaked easily. But for him, it is just a resource. For him, resources are constantly updated with the daily intelligence system, and he has plenty of them. How to maximize the use of resources is what he needs to do. So at this moment he has made a decision, that is, he will establish a merit system. As long as he can reach a certain merit, the other party can learn the falcon breathing method under the witness of the goddess of life, as long as it is not spread to others. And the first choice is Stephen Ryan. One is his knight commander, and the other is his most important subordinate in the future. Even if it is not the eagle breathing method, he wants to spread the eagle breathing method without permission. And listening to Thor's words. At this moment, Steve can be sure that he is not dreaming. Yes, my lord, Steve will follow you to the death, where your sword is, that is where I will go. Goddess of life, I am willing to swear allegiance to you to the death. Steve knelt on one knee and performed the most solemn knight etiquette to Thor again. Thor did not stop him. And accepted the other party's etiquette. Soon the news spread quickly to the knights. For a moment, the entire knights were in an uproar. Even though Thor only gave Steve and Ryan the opportunity to learn the fierce eagle breathing technique, and the others only had one chance, it was just an opportunity. Under his promise, all formal knights would have the opportunity to learn as long as they made enough contributions. He also promised that all the trainee knights would also be given this opportunity as long as they could break through to the official knight. Such news was undoubtedly a heavy bomb, which directly shocked everyone. It also undoubtedly made all the knights, trainee knights, and even reserve knights excited. Their loyalty to Thor reached its peak instantly. Fierce eagle breathing technique, that is the fierce eagle breathing technique. In the entire Dressrosa family, there are only a few who really get this breathing method. Others have no right to get this breathing method. No one expected that at the moment of arriving at the territory, their lord gave them such a heavy message. Even if it was just an opportunity, it was enough to make every knight excited and fanatical. Even though Thor quickly issued a series of orders to build the territory, the knights did not complain, and everyone began to join the construction in full swing. With the addition of 400 knights, especially the 36 official knights, the construction of the entire territory has undoubtedly accelerated countless times. After all, each trainee knight is no less than a heavy machine, not to mention the official knights. These people are not comparable to ordinary people. In less than 3 days, the whole camp has taken shape. Wooden houses have been built one by one. At the same time, the whole camp is surrounded by serfs. In the center is a castle with a foundation. At the current speed, the castle can be completed in half a month at most, and even the surrounding buildings can be completed. This is also the result of the participation of knights. Otherwise, if the serfs were asked to build, they might not be able to reach the current situation in half a year. If it really takes half a year, forget about planting crops this year. In fact, most pioneer knights, in the first year, or even in the second year, there was almost no output, and they could only rely on the supply of Lucerne City. Because of this, the price of goods in Lucerne City has remained high. After all, consumption is far greater than output. A large amount of materials need to be transported from other provinces of the kingdom, so the price is naturally much higher. However, that is for other people. For Thor, before leaving Dressrosa Castle, he had made all preparations. This year, he did not intend to stop planting like other pioneer knights. He spent a month preparing, not only reading a lot of books, but also sorting out some memories of his previous life. In his plan, it is enough to have a harvest this year. Next, he just needs to follow his original plan step by step. Night gradually falls. Another day is about to pass. Tomorrow will be the 4th day. According to the season, it is time to prepare for planting crops. Otherwise, it will be difficult to harvest crops if it is too late. In the simple house, Anna kept looking at the figure in the distance. But at this moment, the figure in the distance did not notice the girl's abnormality. He placed a parchment roll on the stone table. A simple map was already presented on it. And this is his achievement in the past few days, and it is also his plan for the next territory. The huge castle stands in the center, surrounded by squares, which are the places where serfs are placed in the large areas of planting he has divided. Looking closely, there are exactly 500 squares. Maybe it's time to act. A whispered voice spoke, and Thor's eyes flickered. The idea that had been thought of for a long time was completely decided at this moment. Alice. The voice sounded. Oh, master. Anna was a little flustered, and spoke subconsciously, and the figure quickly trotted over. At this moment, I don't know when it started, calling the master has gradually made her a little accustomed. Help me wash up, Thor said calmly. Yes, master. Anna lowered her head and spoke softly. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese novel audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories, and never miss out on a great listen.